Do you want to design your own custom miniature? Hero Forge offers fully customizable tabletop miniatures with dozens of fantasy species and thousands of parts to choose from, all within your browser. Working with materials like color plastic, acrylic standee, and bronze, and offering downloadable model files for users to 3D print their unique designs at home, Hero Forge is constantly expanding its catalog of customization options, adding new parts every week and major features like new species and custom posing on a regular basis. And as a listener of the Horror Queers podcast, you get a special deal. Use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Visit heroforge.com to start designing your custom miniature and dice today, and check back often. New content is added every week. And remember, use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Not combinable with other sales or promotions.
130 million people take road trips every year. 15,400 of them are never seen again. Have you heard the story of the passenger that's been circulating online lately? A young couple set out on a van life trip, but a few nights in, they came across a brutal car accident on the side of the road. I'm not talking about a typical crash. Something about this was off. And there's one detail that keeps coming up. The car they found had 3 deep scratches carved into the side. Not dents, scratches. They stopped, they saw it, and then they left. But here's where things got strange. Not long after, creepy things start happening. They began to feel like they weren't alone in the van, like something followed them from that road. People online have started connecting it to something they're calling the passenger. Supposedly, it attaches itself to anyone who encounters it and marks their car with 3 scratches. And once that happens, it doesn't let go. If these reports are true, this couple didn't just witness something on that highway, they carried it with them. From Andre Overdahl, director of Autopsy of Jane Doe, comes Passenger. Only in theaters May 22nd. Get tickets now.
I hate to say it, but his parents have been feeling unwell as of late, and I'm staying with them to help take care of Alex.
Oh, sounds serious.
Oh, no, it's not serious. Nothing terminal. It's just a touch of consumption.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking, what is this bliss shit? We're talking, I have all the necessary equipment to make you very, very happy. And we're talking, has it occurred to you that she may have lesbian tendencies? And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking Dearest Bitch. See how accessible you are? How'd you like to get fucked with a meat cleaver?
Oh my god, that line lives rent-free in my head since we covered this back in our editorial column, back in what, like 2018?
Ooh, yeah, it was before. I think it predates the podcast. So this episode on Edward Bianchi's The Fan, the 1981 film, not to be confused
not
with
the De Niro one.
Not the De Niro Snipes one, and not the John Travolta Fanatic one, but this is 1981's The Fan. And yeah, I mean, I hadn't revisited this since we covered it for that article series, and yeah, forgot about that line.
It's a good line. This is a fun one, right?
I think it is an interesting beast. It's not one that I would find myself particularly revisiting a lot, although there's a lot here that is very gay.
Oh, so gay, yes. I was thinking, to me, this is a perfect double feature with The Eyes of Laura Mars.
Okay, Joe, not going to lie, because is there a pool scene in Eyes of Laura Mars too?
Don't think so.
Okay, literally, I think in my head, even though we've covered The Eyes of Laura Mars, both in an article form and on this podcast, like, I think in my head, I thought the pool scene was in that movie, not this one. And I realized, yeah, I was mixing up those two films a lot. So
it's because they both got fucking diva performances at the center of them.
And we will talk about Miss Bacall because, hoo boy, she was a diva on the set of this film.
Yeah, God bless her.
But okay, well, let's bring in our guest who's waiting in the wings, because I think we do have a lot to unpack in this admittedly short 95-minute movie. So yes, everyone, he is the co-host of Midnight Mass, a bi-weekly podcast where he and famed drag queen Peaches Christ worship their favorite cult movies. He is the co-founder of June Gloom Productions, a media company devoted to the production, curation, and creation of queer horror and queer social commentary cinema. He wrote and directed the 2024 queer horror film There's a Zombie Outside, and you may also remember him from our previous episodes on Psycho 2, Tenebrae, and The Last of Sheila. Please welcome back Michael Varrati.
Well, I want hearts, not diamonds. It's good to be back. I am thrilled to be back. I am especially excited that you asked me about this episode. It seems that we have an ongoing theme of movies with grand dames and a little bit of love for old Hollywood. So yes. I am honored to get this call.
I realized we hadn't had you back in a little while, and I thought, oh, Michael's going to have all sorts of stories for this one. Or I figured at the very least it would be one you would have a lot to say about.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those movies that I feel like I have loved since I saw it. And what's really interesting is that there are fans of the fan that are very, very rabid. I don't know that I would call myself a rabid fan of this movie, but I do love this movie for its place as a sort of bridge between old Hollywood and the slasher cycle of this moment. It's very much an American giallo. It has that kind of air of a Brian De Palma-esque film. The Pino Donaggio score, of course, goes a really long way to that.
Oh my God, that score.
It's so good. But yeah, I know people who are just absolutely, this is their, air, and they live and breathe this movie. I don't know, forgive me for not knowing, if you've ever had Jeff Nelson, formerly of Scream Factory, on the show.
We haven't.
We have not, but I'm glad that you brought him up. And even speaking about like the queer following this has, because most of my production history that I'll go through is coming from Shout Factory's Blu-ray of this film, which features a commentary moderated by Jeff Nelson, but featuring David Del Valle, a queer film historian, and David Dakota.
Yes.
Wild.
What a trio. I have the great joy and honor of knowing all three of them. But I do know that Jeff is a huge, huge fan of this movie. Jeff is one of those people who I am fairly certain when Scream Factory was organizing the films to release, this was on his personal list. And you need those. You need those people who champion movies like this, because they're the ones whose passion gets it back out there, gets it out to people who are discovering it for the first time. So I couldn't even begin this conversation without shouting Jeff out, because I know that his work has done the work to make more people aware of the fan.
It was one of those things where, I rewatched this. It's like, I see what people see in it. It doesn't always like fully grab my attention the way I think it does other people. But listening to that commentary and hearing that trio's passion for this film, I was like, okay, I can see it. I can definitely see it.
Yeah, I like this film quite a bit, but I will confess on this rewatch, it felt like there were pieces missing. And I wanted to hunt down the book and see if there were things that had been cut out. Like, I know that there's a lot of animosity. The people who like the book hate the movie, and maybe vice versa. But it's an intriguing text because it just feels like there has been some mild interference here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the story of most cinema, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's a very different movie, but somehow I missed 2014's Dracula Untold until 3 days ago. And it was one of those movies while I was watching it, maybe it's because I work so much in production and as a screenwriter, I could see the notes. It was so
Oh, really?
clear to me what was in the original trajectory and when it zagged instead of zigged,
Yeah.
And I think that that's the thing that is unfun about working so closely in film is we've pulled the curtain back. I know there's no wizard. I know it's an old guy,
It's an old white dude probably smoking some kind of stogie who's saying, I don't know, this seems too smart for people.
Well, can you see the notes on this film, Michael?
Well, I think in this film, it was a concentrated effort to keep it slim with the horror. I mean, it's there. I think it's a very unsettling movie, but I feel like, this is 81. We just had Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
The slasher cycle hasn't really kicked in to the degree that it would later in the 80s. But there is this thing that already is attached, the idea of the one prestige star in a horror movie that kind of gives it some sort of credibility, but is also already aware. It's Donald Pleasance in Halloween. It's Betsy Palmer in Friday the 13th. But you're not going to do that with a star the caliber of Lauren Bacall. And I think they wanted to make it very clear this is not a kill your teenagers movie, as Roger Ebert would have referred to it. This is a movie that is a vehicle for a star. And so we're not going to have the blood flood, Tom Savini-esque gore. And I think that's what it was, is they pulled it back because all of the kills that the Michael Biehn character Douglas commits, those are vicious, and they could have been. They
should be.
Yeah, they should be. And we like even off screen, you're sort of like a little cringy. The pool stuff, the attack of the secretary in the subway, but they pull it back. They pull their punches.
Yeah, I'm going to dive into this production because I think I have some answers for y'all regarding all of this. I will say, so, I mean, there are interviews with the director of this movie, with the editor of this movie, and as I said, that commentary with that trio of wonderful queer men, but there seem to be a few discrepancies about the order of things. So I tried to do my best to do a timeline for this. So,
okay. I'm guessing no Bacall on the, actually, I don't know when she passed.
She passed in 2014, so it would have been before this.
Okay.
Yeah. But okay, so yes, The Fan, based on Bob Randall's 1977 epistolary novel of the same name. So yes, this is a novel that is written entirely in letters. I would assume from the titular fan's perspective, but I'm unsure about that.
I can clarify. It's both of their perspectives, but a lot of her letters are to Jake, explaining how she's doing with the musical, and apparently some other things like notes that she is passing back and forth with Belle. So it's more personal stuff for her, and then it's the letters that become increasingly more threatening from Douglas the fan.
Gotcha. Well, because I honestly, Bianchi pointed out something in his interview where I didn't even clock it, where Michael Biehn doesn't actually have any dialogue with a person in this movie until the climax. All of his dialogue is letters.
Well, that's wild.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay, so let's start off with the elephant in the room, which is that this film originally had a queer director at the helm. And that man was British Indian director Waris Hussain, whose last film before The Fan was the 1973 TV movie Divorce His, Divorce Hers, starring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton in their last film together.
That must have been a tense set.
I imagine so. And then his last horror film, however, was the 1972 supernatural horror film The Possession of Joel Delaney, starring Shirley MacLaine. Now, this was when The Fan was more of a psychological thriller, and Lauren Bacall had signed on because the script at that time was more focused on how the fan affected the life of a famous actress. Like, it was more about the effect on her life, which you see a little bit of that in this movie, but that's not exactly what the final product turned out to be. So, as Michael already said, the massive success of films like Friday the 13th led producer Robert Stigwood to decide that he wanted to make the movie more of a slasher film just like that. This angered Hussain, who left the project. Well, some say he left, others say he was fired, but it's the old standby of creative differences.
Sure. Yeah.
We love creative differences.
We sure do.
It's the catch-all. Any issues that we need to just make people stop asking questions? Creative differences.
Well, and sometimes it is way more complicated than quitting or being fired. It is a mired situation getting any production done. I've certainly had a few creative differences in my day, so I'm sympathetic.
Also on this Blu-ray, by the way, is an interview with the Academy Award-winning editor Alan Heim, who had just won his Oscar for editing Bob Fosse's All That Jazz when he was doing this movie. And he tried to quit when Hussain was fired because he didn't like the idea of editing something that was more of a slasher film. That wasn't what interested him. But he was locked in with a contract, so he had no say in the matter. And he is particularly vicious about this film, saying that the only good thing to come out of this movie was Pino Donaggio's score.
I mean, it is a hell of a score.
It is, but I think that that's very short-sighted. There's a lot in this movie that I think is really well put together, and I think that the cinematography of this movie is actually quite lush.
Agreed.
Yes.
And I think that while the character work for Lauren Bacall's character is not necessarily maybe what was in the original draft or what's in the book,
it's still pretty good.
It's super good. And I think that she does some excellent work here. What I really enjoy is you see her having fun. And that's not something that I associate, apologies to Ms. Bacall, but I don't associate like a light, carefree nature with Lauren Bacall. No. Her whole kind of persona in Hollywood was more
icy,
edgy, femme fatale, severe on purpose, not severe without a point. And I think that she getting to play somebody who is actually, dare I say, even at moments bubbly. I love when she goes to rehearsal and everybody's just like all, up in her grill and she's up in theirs. And it's like, it's that energy that actors give each other. And you see her having fun and sort of flitting around. That's not Lauren Bacall that the world knows, but Lauren Bacall gave us that in this movie. And so there's some like really special stuff woven throughout the fabric.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know famously that she did not enjoy making this movie, or it's not the movie she wanted to make, but I don't really see it on screen. Like, it doesn't feel as if she's phoning it in.
No, and she did genuinely enjoy the musical parts of filming this movie. But you are correct. She did not like the final product. But before we get to her, let's talk about the director we get. So Hussein leaves, enter Edward Bianchi, who was a commercial director doing a lot of high-end commercials for companies like Dr. Pepper, and specifically with Dr. Pepper. Every year, those commercials would air during the Academy Awards, and Bianchi was in the middle of writing what was then called Saturday Night Fever 2, of course would go on to become Staying Alive.
Right.
After Stigwood saw some of those commercials, and Stigwood saw the commercials and hired Bianchi to do Saturday Night Fever 2, so he was working on that script with Norman Wexler and closed his commercial company because he thought that was his end. Like, all he ever wanted to do was direct feature films, so he was like, cool, commercials done, I'm doing cinema now.
He's got his in.
Then he was called up and told that executive producer Kevin McCormick, who was the buffer between Bianchi and the big producer Stigwood, the studio guy, he wanted him to direct The Fan. And the subject matter didn't really interest Bianchi, but he said, well, Francis Ford Coppola once gave me the advice to say yes to more projects than you say no to, because, you got to work. And because Lauren Bacall and James Garner were already attached to a film that was being filmed in New York, Bianchi was like, well, yeah, why would I say no to this? So yeah, let's do it.
I love that this is another classic case of a bunch of people making a horror or thriller film who do not want to be making a horror or thriller film.
Right. But it's lucrative, and that's why the studio wanted it.
Yeah. It is. And upon accepting the gig, Bianchi, who, again, this is his first feature film, had 3 weeks to prep before shooting began. Because, this shift from psychological thriller to more of a slasher film happened a month before shooting was supposed to begin. So they were rewriting parts of the script as they prepared, but Bianchi did take the job very seriously. And as you said, Michael, I think there's a lot of creativity on display on the technical side of things. Like some of the cinematography here, even the opening credit sequence is, I think, really, really, really well done. And Bianchi said he took inspiration from Clute while directing it, and he also saw The Shining in theaters while he was filming, so that influenced him as well.
Okay.
Now, Bacall. Okay. The Fan was set to be her first leading role in roughly 20 years, so a lot was riding on it for her. She had a lot of questions for Bianchi, and when he started talking about the movie, she said, no, not The Fan, it's me. Not The Fan.
It's her movie.
Yep. Now, Bianchi said that she was very demanding, and part of it was because, speaking to, again, that kind of shift between old Hollywood and new Hollywood, it was a new time. It wasn't the old time. So she's off in an area of acting, a style of acting, that she wasn't really comfortable with. It wasn't how they did it back in her heyday, and sometimes that would manifest in her being unhappy. And Bianchi says she was unhappy a lot behind the scenes, but it worked for the role. And while she hated those violent parts of the film, she loved the musical portions. And that editor Alan Heim, by the way, said he tried to protect Bacall as much as he could when editing the musical numbers, since she wasn't a natural singer or dancer.
Right.
It's interesting to consider the lull between leading roles that Bacall would have had at the beginning of her career and at this point, because you're right, there was a fundamental shift in the nature of what the industry was. Now, I don't know that the slasher cycle would necessarily be lumped into the auteur cycle, but we are coming off the heels of that in the 70s.
Right.
And when Bacall rose up through Hollywood, it was through a studio system where the stars really were the people who like drove the movies.
Absolutely.
And they were assigned to movies and they starred in the movies. And yes, you know, the bigger the star, they had more say. Like, you weren't going to tell Bette Davis what to do or whatever.
God help you if you did.
There was kind of a system where, you know, those movies had studio directors that were assigned by studio. And then you have the likes of Stanley Kubrick and these folks who redefine, no, it is the director's vision. The director gets to do this, and that changed the industry. And so now you have Lauren Bacall coming post Easy Rider and Raging Bull and all of these things, and the director wants to have a say, and I'm sure that was very jarring to her.
Well, and a first-time director nonetheless. So, like, for instance, she referred to Bianchi as Dr. Pepper while making this movie.
God, no.
Yes. So, again, she was not very pleasant. Michael Biehn said he brought Bacall a bouquet of roses the first time he met her, and she was talking to James Garner, and, you know, he came up, he's like, Miss Bacall, you know, I'm Michael Biehn, I'm playing the fan in the film. He handed her the roses, and she promptly handed them to her assistant, turned around, and walked right back over to James Garner without saying a single thing to Michael Biehn. She'd refer to Michael Biehn later in the production as Mr. Biehn, the actor with no control, because he pushed her too hard while filming the climactic showdown of the film.
Okay.
In Bihn's 2019 interview for Shout Factory's Blu-ray release of this film, Biehn does not mince words about Bacall either. When discussing people who love the movie, he says, and I quote, maybe they love that low Lauren Bacall howl that she expressed as music.
Oh, that's a low blow.
Yeah.
So production is about to begin, but Bacall came down with chicken pox the day before they had to start shooting, and they're like, that's fine, we'll go to the insurance company. But the insurance company wouldn't pay them until they had shot all the scenes without Bacall first, because they were like, well, yeah, you have production, just start filming what you don't need her for. So Bianchi then was forced to shoot scenes that he hadn't prepared for yet,
right.
The very first of which was the pool scene.
Oh, wow. Shit.
Yeah.
I would not want to have to shoot that as the first thing.
Yeah.
No, especially in the early 80s, this is not a digital camera. That's a film camera. So you're talking about like caged camera, underwater. That's a lot of work.
That's a complicated thing to start with for like anyone.
Exactly. And so again, I don't know exactly how, I don't think they got through all of the Bacall list scenes before they were able to do this, but still, I'm like, I wonder how many of them there were. And given the fact that we do get reshoots later, again, I think you can see some of the writing on the wall here, but
right.
I'll tell you who I think did the best work behind the scenes of this movie. Is James Garner's agent, because he gets second billing in this movie. And look, I get it. It's James Garner. He's
James
also
Garner,
a Hollywood legend, but he barely is in this film.
5 minutes?
He's charming. He phones it in, but it's sort of like how Jack Nicholson is like the second billed in The Evening Star, the sequel to Terms of Endearment, and he's in 2 minutes. You know, it's like, no. James Garner is not in this film the way that the poster or the opening credits would have you believe.
No.
And good for his reps.
I think it's a thing too where, again, maybe in the earlier version of whatever this script was, where it was like, okay, we're really focusing on how all this affects the Lauren Bacall character, if he had more in the script phase to do. Because even in the reviews for this film, even the bad reviews in this came out, people were like, oh, like they were complimenting Bacall and Garner's work. And I was like, Bacall I get, but Garner, who's not bad in this movie by any means, doesn't get a moment to shine in any shape, way, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess his like big thing is, we were divorced, but we like each other.
Yes.
And maybe you can still be friends with your ex / love them.
Mm-hmm.
Like groundbreaking work in the hetero community.
That's it. But I will say, I think, Trace, you and I highlighted this way back in our editorial column, but I think the chemistry between the two of them is so good. Their scenes, sure, it feels like a completely different film, but I think they're great.
I don't really get a lot of sexual chemistry from them, but I get a lot of friendly chemistry, which to me makes sense because they were clearly friends in real life.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But, okay, so here's the thing. Shooting begins on April 1st of 1980 and lasts through June. So even though we already had, we need to make the script more of a slasher film because Friday the 13th and other films coming out in early 1981, producer Robert Stigwood went to see Dressed to Kill, which by my calculations came out in July of 1980. And granted, maybe he saw an early cut of it, I don't know. But after seeing that, Stigwood decided that they needed to add more violence to the film since that's clearly what audiences wanted to see. So
That is a fundamental misreading of Dressed to Kill, by the way.
Yes, absolutely.
That movie is way more than its violence.
Well, and I guess that means, too, so while, again, maybe we had some more slashery elements to the film before shooting began, I think the straight razor of it all was added afterwards because of the Dressed to Kill of it all.
Interesting.
So they did they finished filming in June. They did additional filming in August of 1980, which included adding Maureen Stapleton's character getting slashed with a straight razor in the subway tunnels, as well as the murder of Bacall's maid Elsa, which originally she did not die in even the script version of the film. So the ending was also reshot, and the reason James Garner is not in that finale, despite being in the originally shot ending, is because he wasn't available for those reshoots.
Right.
So,
and it was tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the book does end, this is the big change, really. The book ends with the fan murdering the actress, but I'm not sure if that was the original ending of the film or if she was always going to live. But I will say that the pool scene was always in the movie, even from the script they had before Hussein left the project.
I mean, it is a great set piece.
It's great. To be honest, I want a little bit more of it. It was so much longer in my memory from the last time I watched this. And here it feels like we barely get going and then it's just over. And I thought, it's almost a wasted opportunity because it is so fucking good.
Yeah, I think that's going back to what we said earlier in the conversation. There are these moments that are vicious, but they're also quick vicious. And they don't really have any time to breathe. And I think also of the sequence where Maureen Stapleton is being stalked by him in the subway.
So good.
If going to see Dressed to Kill was the primer for this, I'm sort of like, okay, then watch the museum opening of Dressed to Kill again. Because the murder doesn't happen quick.
No.
It's a lot. It's cat and mouse. You build that tension. You wind that audience up. I think that's it, is we never wind the audience up. They start getting wound up, and before they really get the chance to start getting...
It's just over.
Yeah, it's over. You're absolutely right.
Well, and I think maybe it would make more sense, too. Like, if the pool scene was always in the film, then maybe the idea was, okay, that is your moment of violence, like the turning point for the Douglas character, where it's like, oh, he's tipped over the edge, he's killed this person, but it's the only murder in the film. And maybe it stands out because of that. But because we do have, these extra sequences with the Maureen Stapleton character, with Elsa's maid, it doesn't stand out like that. Outside of just being like, I don't know about y'all, but whenever he swims under him and the slice actually happens, I kind of like cross my legs a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, but Bacall would eventually say about The Fan is much more graphic and violent than when I read the script. The movie I wanted to make had more to do with what happens to the life of the woman and less blood and gore. And granted, I will say, the Maureen Stapleton scene I do think is pretty intense, but I wouldn't call this movie particularly gory. I think it's maybe vicious, but not gory.
I think from her perspective, especially if she signed on for something that is a little bit more of a character study, to go back to our 1 hour photo discussion, this is probably much more bloody than she would have preferred. But that's also giving classic Hollywood Grand Dame, right? I don't want to be in a fucking schlocky B movie. I signed on for something classy. And I think you could argue that that's where some of the tension lies for audience members, is that this feels a bit like the film is battling itself at times. Sometimes it wants to be Friday the 13th, and sometimes it wants to be Dressed to Kill.
Yeah. And I wonder, too, if coming from the era that Bacall did, there was a stigma. We mentioned Betty Davis.
100%.
We mentioned Joan Crawford. Well, I'm mentioning Joan Crawford right now. But there was that thing that as the actresses got older, they started doing these horror movies, which of course became very lucrative and very good for them. Mm-hmm. But the industry as a whole kind of treated it as less than. And so I think that, Bacall saw her contemporaries be diminished in the eyes of critics and the press for doing horror. And now she's in a movie where someone's slashing bellies with a straight razor. She probably was like, oh no, I am not Baby Jane, and I will not Baby Jane.
Well, and this one isn't going to get you an Oscar nomination either.
Right.
Maybe today it would. Well, not this version of the film, but like a better version of the film. I did just want to mention the musical stuff, because I figure we'll get more into it in the plot section, but while Pino Donaggio composed the score for The Fan, it was Marvin Hamlish, a PGOT winner, the P, by the way, for the Pulitzer Prize, who composed the music for the in-movie musical we have. And Hamlish was perhaps best known at the time for writing the music for the acclaimed 1975 Broadway musical A Chorus Line, and I think you can tell given the content of the in-movie musical, but
oh boy, yes.
Both his Tony Award and Pulitzer Prize were for A Chorus Line as well.
I have a question for you, Michael. I mean, Trace and I like our musicals, but I wouldn't say that we're musical babies by any stretch of the imagination. Do you think that the musical is good? Because Trace and I fully had an exchange that said sometimes this feels like the Madeline Ashton musical from Death Becomes Her. Like, it doesn't seem great.
I'm so glad you asked this question. No, there is no way Never Say Never is a good musical.
Okay.
But I think that it's a really interesting thing, right? Because this is supposed to be a starring vehicle for a Hollywood actress who's doing her first musical, and we never really are told what it's about. We get snippets of the show that I'm sure they think thematically relate back to her character in the movie. I don't know that that necessarily is true.
I don't think so.
But we mentioned Staying Alive earlier. I'm fascinated by musicals and stage shows within movies where you only get bits. You see the end performance from Staying Alive. You see the musical moments here. You mentioned Madeline Ashton in Death Becomes Her. Goddess in Showgirls.
I was just about to say that. I have tried so many times to figure out how the musical numbers in Showgirls work together.
Yeah, and the more you start peeling back the layers, you're like, I don't even know what this is. I'm not sure what this show is. And so you're sold on the idea that it's supposed to be great. And I think that that's a really, really tricky gambit when you're doing any sort of piece of art that is about a piece of art, when you have to sell the idea to the audience that the world within this movie would sell out a Broadway theater to see this show. That's a crazy thing to try and do inside of a film, because you basically have to create something that would be that caliber. And 9 times out of 10, we don't reach those stars. And that's true of any media about media. You know, anytime there's a movie about a rock star who at the end writes the big number.
Yeah.
There's always a moment where you have to think to yourself, like, would this actually be a hit?
Yeah, would it be big enough to do the thing that the movie is saying? I get that every time because I talk about a lot of YA, and they love to do stuff about prodigies. Like, I'm going to Juilliard for singing, or I'm going to be like blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, what I see of you on screen tells me that you are mediocre at best.
Well, it's kind of like, too, like I think the more recent modern examples we're getting out of this is like, okay, like something like Trap or like the concert, Smile 2, where it's like, okay, this is like the concert star that everyone is so wild about. Or
Mother Mary.
Oh yeah, exactly that. And so you have to make something that's like, this sounds like something that this modern generation would go gaga for.
Right. But it's funny though, because we also can point to pieces of media that when it works, right?
Yes.
I think that Thing You Do is an example of a movie where they're like, this is a band that had one song that's so catchy and huge they could never match that potential. And when you hear that song in that movie, you're like, yeah, absolutely.
100%.
That song
Josie and the
is
Pussycats.
Yeah, Josie and the Pussycats. And even to some degree, something like music and lyrics, what I like about that movie is Hugh Grant's character is supposed to be a pop star on the other side of his career. So the song that they end up doing at the end of the movie, I could see a later stage pop star doing. So that's the problem, though, is when somebody does it really well, when you come back and you're thinking about sitting in the audience for Hearts Not Diamonds, and you're like, what the fuck is this show?
And that's the finale number.
Yeah.
Right.
Michael, I have to say, though, as someone who definitely played Way Back Into Love from music and lyrics at his wedding, I appreciate that.
That is a delightful film. Folks, if you need a ray of sunshine, great film.
Oh my God,
it's so good. But I do also love spectacle, which, of course, is often why I get invited to be on podcasts to talk about these kind of movies.
Can't be shit.
Do I think that Never Say Never would be a good musical? No. Would I be there to watch it?
Yes.
Absolutely. Because it's drag. Well, first off, it's Lauren Bacall being whatever she's doing.
Whatever this character is, yeah.
Everybody around her is just like in rhinestones and high kicking and... I mean,
we have every single color of the rainbow on set during that number.
It's so weirdly gay. Like the men dress like they're businessmen, but then we're referencing Paris. And then we've got Bacall's character in bed doing that number where she mentioned, you know, they want me to do a whole dance number in this heart-shaped bed. And you're just thinking, what the fuck is going on?
And it's like, you know, you have the music writer of a chorus line, the editor of all that jazz working to put all this together. And it's like, I see something here that I would want to see it. Whether it's good is an entirely different question.
Yeah, and I think that there are some really striking moments. That sequence where the show opens, when we see them all kind of doing the sort of Fosse backlit situation.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Great.
It is great, but also it's a weirdly jarring moment because everything in the movie was not tonally that up until that moment. And all of a sudden it's like, ba 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 5, 6, 7, 8.
It is absolutely wild. But okay, so this is not the end of the issues with this film, by the way. So the final round of filming ends in September of 1980, but Filmways, the studio that originally agreed to distribute and co-produce the film, experienced a financial crisis, resulting in an inability to compensate for the film's production budget. So,
Jesus Christ, every time we cover an early 80s film, it's, and then the fucking production studio went out of business, or they had to borrow money from mobsters.
So the film was then acquired by Paramount Pictures, who bought the film negative, and now begins another round of terrible decision-making. So, you see, John Lennon was shot and killed by Mark David Chapman on December 8th, 1980, and someone at Paramount, thought it would be a good idea to lean into that real-life tragedy in the fans' marketing.
Gross.
Yes. That went about as well as you'd expect. They got busted for it, and they stopped advertising the film completely, going so far as to put a disclaimer on what little advertising there was, saying that it had no relation to John Lennon's assassination or to the attempted assassination of Pope John Paul II in 1981, and that it was filmed and completed before those things happened. Now, did that help the film's box office? No. Even with the press for the film. So Michael Biehn had an interview with the LA Times, and they came to his home to do the interview. He was, I guess, a little too honest about the production and Bacall's behavior on set. That was the last interview he did for the film.
Uh-oh.
Because he's quite green at this point, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, he's a baby in this movie, especially when you consider, the career that follows. He's so young looking and so young,
so fresh,
so
hot. What?
This is Twink fan. Because this is not yet the father of John Connor. Yeah.
Right.
We're just 3 years shy of it. And he looks so much older in The Terminator than he does here.
Yeah. Well, he
survived an apocalypse.
Exactly.
Wow.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah.
Anyway, so The Fan was released in the US on May 15th of 1981 with little fanfare.
Oh, get out of here.
It grossed $3 million against a $10 million budget, making it a box office bomb. Critics didn't like it. We're looking at a 37% on Rotten Tomatoes, but Letterboxd users have given this a 3.1 out of 5. So
there we go.
There's your fans right there. And while Bianchi is disappointed in the reception that The Fan got, he's still proud of his work and thinks there's some good stuff in it. Bacall did shed some more positive thoughts on it in a 2004 interview, saying that she felt her performance was among her very best work.
That's a big turnaround.
Turnaround. James Garner, meanwhile, reflected in his 2011 memoir that The Fan was one of the worst pictures he ever made, and that the only saving grace was working with Betty Bacall, because yes, Laura Bacall's real name is Betty Joan Persky.
Right. And also, James Garner, settle down. As Michael just said a couple minutes ago, you're barely in this movie and you only have to interact with Lauren Bacall.
Either Jeff Nelson or David Dakota, I can't tell which one it was in the commentary, but they said that they knew James Garner's daughter, and that they basically brought up The Fan to her, and she was like, "What are you talking about? My father has never talked about that movie."
Oh,
that's
really?
wild.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the only way that I would at least give grace to him not talking about it is that he was there so little.
Yeah.
Right. Because for him to say it's one of the worst movies he was ever part of, I'm like, how would you have even had a bad experience? You showed up, walked on a beach with Lauren Bacall, and then did a scene where you brought her flowers, and you got to be kind of charming. And that, watching the movie and just thinking about production, I was like, was he on set for more than a week? Probably not.
Probably not.
He may not even remember making it. So he's just like, I'll throw this under the gun.
Yeah, honestly, maybe his ghostwriter went and watched all of his films, and like that's the thing they put in whenever they were writing his biography.
Or it was, that movie was a bomb and it's got a bit of a stink to it. So maybe I'll just say, it wasn't a very good experience.
Yeah, we see this a lot in discussion on cult movies at Midnight Mass, and I'm sure you both do as well, where these movies have come to be embraced by an audience, but there is the more tangible business side of show business.
Yeah.
Where folks, especially from this era, have a lot of confusion about why people like it because they attach the value of it to that immediate response.
The money.
And it is really interesting, especially when it comes to genre. And it's something I like to remind folks of. Our fandom of horror movies is something that we invest in and spend a lot of time looking at and thinking about and rediscussing and rediscovering. But actors are people who accept jobs. And sometimes they make a movie, it's a job they did, and then they move on. And they don't think about it the way that the person who's dissecting every bit of it is. And so I see how sometimes these folks are like, that was a disappointment. I enjoyed making it, but then it came out and it was a flop, or it did this, and I just don't want to think about it. I want to go on to the next thing.
Right.
Are often caught surprised that people like it because the last time they thought about it was when they heard it was a disappointment, only to discover 20 years later that there's a Blu-ray re-release and these, fans are clamoring for the fan.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense, right? I mean, I think the easiest comparison for average folks would be like, what if you did a presentation at work or you had a great interaction, then stop thinking about it. And then, weeks later, somebody comes back and says, hey, I've really been going over this in minute, minute by minute detail or slide by slide detail. And you're like, what the fuck are you on about? That's ancient history.
I didn't put that much thought into that project, and you are.
Well, it's interesting. I have had good occasion to work with a lot of the cast members of the Friday the 13th franchise just over the course of my own career. And I don't think she would mind me saying this because she has talked about this in interviews as well. But, Adrienne King went and made the first movie, which, of course, when you go and make the first movie, they didn't know that it was going to be a huge thing.
No idea. No.
And she'll talk about how she obviously knew that it had some attention because she got brought back for the sequel. And every now and then she would drive past a theater and that was advertising part 4 or 5. But it never really clicked to her that it had this huge following until a couple decades later when she got invited to her
the cons, right?
Yeah, she went to a con and people were lining up and she's like, wait, people like these?
That is so wild.
I mean, the convention circuit, I think. I mean, cons have been around for decades, but I think, especially now, the horror convention is, I would argue, more popular than it's ever been for these, and really allows these actors to keep a living, really, because they probably make so much money. I mean, the prices for autographs and stuff from when I started going to cons in the early 2010s has risen astronomically since then.
Which I kind of fucking love, because if these people did get burned or they were making pennies on some of these projects back in the day, for them to now be raking in, I mean, probably not even raking in some money, to make a little bit of money from doing this and getting to see the adulation of fans who actually want to give them their due, good for them.
100%. Yeah. But, Joe...
Yes.
What happens in this movie? Do you want to design your own custom miniature? Hero Forge offers fully customizable tabletop miniatures with dozens of fantasy species and thousands of parts to choose from, all within your browser. Working with materials like color plastic, acrylic standee, and bronze, and offering downloadable model files for users to 3D print their unique designs at home, Hero Forge is constantly expanding its catalog of customization options, adding new parts every week and major features like new species and custom posing on a regular basis. And as a listener of the Horror Queers podcast, you get a special deal. Use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Visit HeroForge.com to start designing your custom miniature and dice today, and check back often. New content is added every week. And remember, use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Not combinable with other sales or promotions.
130 million people take road trips every year. 15,400 of them are never seen again. Have you heard the story of the passenger that's been circulating online lately? A young couple set out on a van life trip, but a few nights in, they came across a brutal car accident on the side of the road. I'm not talking about a typical crash. Something about this was off. And there's one detail that keeps coming up. The car they found had 3 deep scratches carved into the side. Not dents, scratches. They stopped, they saw it, and then they left. But here's where things got strange. Not long after, creepy things start happening. They began to feel like they weren't alone in the van, like something followed them from that road. People online have started connecting it to something they're calling the passenger. Supposedly, it attaches itself to anyone who encounters it and marks their car with 3 scratches. And once that happens, it doesn't let go. If these reports are true, this couple didn't just witness something on that highway, they carried it with them. From Andre Overdahl, director of Autopsy of Jane Doe, comes Passenger. Only in theaters May 22nd. Get tickets now.
All right. Well, Trace, you mentioned the opening of this film, and yeah, it's a really stylish way to open up a movie because we've got this roaming close-up of objects on a desk, and we're hearing voiceover of a typewritten letter that is, of course, dictated by the fan. This would be Douglas Breen, played by Michael Biehn, and he is writing to his favorite star, Sally Ross, played by Lauren Bacall. And of course, we've also got Panaggio score going on.
Donaggio score.
Panaggio Donaggio.
I can't remember the time I was like, dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
I love how stylish this opening is, and I always forget about it until I rewatch it, and then I'm just brought right back in. And one of the things that I often wondered was whether some of those things were miniatures. But then when you finally get his fingers on the keys, you're like, well, I guess maybe it wasn't. It's just a really, really artful use of the lens. But it's just so smart. And a lot of the frames of the items that glide over make me think of like tawdry paperback covers of the time.
Sure.
You know, just like a letter opener next to a rose, Judith Krantz presents. You know, Danielle Steele's the blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So I think it's intentionally evoking that because these items in of themselves are not ominous, but with that music, with that close-up, with the Dear Miss Ross, you know, it is very upsetting for some reason to see postage stamps.
Antiquated media and other forms of communication. I think the other thing for me is this is giving a little bit of neo-noir, which totally makes sense when you've got the Bacall connection, right? You know, it's a little bit tawdry. It does feel melodrama. Yeah, it's, you know, Joan Collins, Jackie and all that kind of stuff. But then it does have this film noir vibe of typewritten letters and mystery and that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know if there's a connection or an intersection, rather, between film noir and giallo or American giallo. But as you said, Michael, it feels like an early precursor to some of that.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely crossover. We know that the Italian giallo came from mystery paperbacks. And the translation to film really began still in the black and white era. Early examples of black and white giallo, I think Evil Eye, Mario Bava with John Saxon. Bava, of course, who became very known for his use of color in film. Mm-hmm. But if you look at Evil Eye, which is a black and white murder mystery, the color, or rather the lack of color, but the use of light to create shade, he definitely was inspired by noir to craft that horror. And so then one of the definitive masters who laid the blueprint of giallo, which is a mystery genre, I think it sometimes gets only lumped into horror, but it is a mystery genre.
Right.
The connection's there. I mean, like it's a through line. And so I think that you're really hitting on something very interesting here. It's, you know, Bacall comes from noir. Noir gives birth to giallo. And now we have an American version of giallo starring Lauren Bacall.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that people may not be aware of is that this is one of the first really serious treatments of celebrity stalker. And it's something that really comes into ascendancy in the early 80s. Like, Trace, I can't remember what other titles we've talked about, but there's been a couple where it feels like the film is either referencing a real life star's stalking and or the person was stalked because of the movie. But this was still kind of new-ish and novel, because we didn't have the closeness, the relationship to stardom that we had. Like, stars were never as available. And this movie is starting to comment on this new era where we find ourselves living among them, but also being able to get to them if we want to. It's dark, but let's introduce Sally Ross. So she comes out of a theater and immediately her stardom is confirmed because there's all of these autograph seekers, right? So we get a woman who ends up stealing her pen right out of her hand, runs across the street, almost gets hit by a car. And then our on-screen introduction to the fan is he trips this woman and steals the pen from the thief so that he now has Sally Ross's pen.
I did appreciate that she was so willing to sign autographs for people waiting for her outside this building. And I would imagine that's maybe something more common and accepted in New York than it is in Hollywood. But I don't know.
Very theater.
Yeah. Can you speak to that, Mike? Did people wait outside film studios to get autographs from celebrities?
If they do, they're not from town. I will say that.
Right.
But I don't see it as much, honestly. I think that the general vibe in Los Angeles when you see a famous person is you can
Leave
kind of
them be.
like tacitly acknowledge that they're there in your brain, but you don't bother them.
Right.
And it's not that it doesn't happen. I think that if it is in a venue where some sort of social contract exists, like if you were to go to a taping of one of the late shows and you were at the stage door and whatever celebrity, yes, I think that's an autograph place. And similarly to New York, it is not uncommon on Broadway for people to go wait at the door after a show because they know these people have to leave and it is just part of it. But I do not know that it would be very...
Not like movie stars. We don't do that in that capacity.
Yeah, and I still even think in New York City, if you were like at Sardi or at like, you know, any place for dinner and you saw someone eating, it would be really frowned upon to go bother them.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think the early parts of this film do a really good job of is establishing a connection between Sally and Douglas, but they're not actually interacting. So after we steal this pen, we get to watch both of them go home. So we watch both of them enter their respective houses. Sally gets ready for bed. She leaves this very melancholy phone message for her ex, Jake, who will eventually be James Garner. And Douglas gets to work on a new letter complaining that he got a form response from her secretary. I love that initially he still thinks that he's actually getting responses from Sally herself until he realizes, oh, I'm not getting the caliber of response I expected. Somebody else is interfering with this.
Very naive.
One of my favorite things about the early escalation that's extremely subtle is the first couple letters are Dear Miss Ross, Dear Miss Ross.
Yes.
And then at one point he says, Dear Sally. And I think that that's really significant because the wall is coming down sooner than I think the audience. I mean, obviously the audience knows what they're getting into. They checked into this movie with probably a basic understanding of what it was about. But by the time he writes that third letter, we're only like 5 or 6 minutes in. When he changes how he refers to her, it's like, oh, okay, this guy's losing it. Yeah.
He's already lost context for reality where he thinks they have a closeness in their relationship. She doesn't even know who he fucking is.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's meet Sally's two staff members. So we have maid, Elsa, who is played by Faiga Martinez, and then we have the secretary, Belle, who, as you mentioned, Trace, is played by Maureen Stapleton. And we are really properly introduced to Sally. Like, we saw her signing autographs, but we don't know who she is as a person. Here, she comes out of bed, and we've got these two people who are already diligently working on her day, cleaning the apartment and getting her breakfast and stuff ready. It's her birthday. So it's her 49th birthday when we open this movie. And
do you have a comment about that?
She's so fucking old. Put her out to pasture.
Well, I think she was much older than 49 when she was making this movie.
That's it. I mean, obviously, I love her in this movie and have zero problem with
She's not
films.
passing for 49.
Yeah, she's not. She's just not viably 49. I love a movie centered on an older person. I think we need more of them. So in a way, it's almost disingenuous to try and be like, oh, she's 49. I'm like, no, she's definitely in her 60s.
Yes.
And I actually find that compelling. This is a person who has lived life, who is a movie star, a star of the stage. She still has gratitude. I mean, her relationship with the Maureen Stapleton character, I think, is lovely. Her relationship with her staff is lovely. And so to have this person who is supposed to be extremely famous, but also very gracious about their fame, signing autographs, being kind, being sweet, and actually being older, I think would just mean more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only reason I could see that they might have aged her down is just because there are times where Sally herself feels a little naive about her fandom. When she gets into it with Belle about not keeping the fans happy, I thought, surely you have been through this song and dance before. Like, you would have experienced other fans who were demanding, and Belle would have either protected you or she would have said, no, this is one that we maybe flag and send to the police.
But we spoke to the difference, though, between like how there was a bit more access to the stars at this time. So maybe this was something in terms of this woman
it's changing.
Yeah, it's different for her. Or maybe if it they did have a creepy fan writing letters, maybe Belle never let it get that far. I'm sorry, maybe that makes it sound like it's on Belle for letting it get this far. That's not what I mean by that. But
well, she's definitely acting as a buffer, right? Because even at this early stage, we can see that Douglas is writing letters regularly. Like, we've already seen him write 2 letters. And as you said, Michael, it's 5 minutes into the film. But Belle is the one who is reading this new one. And we see her say, who the hell does he think he is? So clearly she is adept at handling this kind of stuff. But this guy is taking things further than maybe other folks have.
Oh, a fun fact, by the way, though, Maureen Stapleton, who plays Belle, she had just finished filming the epic historical film Reds before she started filming this, and she won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for that film.
Okay.
For
a little Oscar combo there.
Yeah.
All right, let's introduce Jake. So James Garner, in one of his 3 fucking scenes in this movie, he picks Sally up for lunch. And as I put in my notes, I think they have a cute chemistry. She is fretting about this new musical that she's doing. And you can tell that she's not happy that he is dating a much younger woman. We learn here that they were married for 15 years. And we're very much doing the she could be our daughter kind of thing. But we're trying to play nice. They have a friendly relationship where they can still get along, and he's in town, so obviously we're going to do lunch.
And I know we kind of like poked fun at it, but I genuinely do like the maturity with which we have the relationship between Sally and Jake, and similarly with her relationship between her and Belle. Like, I actually do find myself being more compelled by those moments in the film, even though I don't think Jake's much of a character. But I like seeing that. I don't know, it's just something you wouldn't expect to see in a film of Hollywood at the time.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's really important to highlight, because despite Lauren Bacall's maybe disinterest in where the script evolved, or her degradation of it, I don't know if that's the right word I want to use here, but I think the character work is a lot more solid than this movie gets credit for, because it's the nuance of seeing her relationship with her assistant and her ex-husband that communicates to the audience who this person is. I think that we have seen many movies about the behind the scenes of what it is to be a Hollywood star, and they always portray a level of caricature. But I don't get that here. I think that Lauren Bacall really is 3-dimensional. I think that Sally is presented as a person who has goals and ambitions. She likes what she does while also questioning what she does, which a normal person would do. Mm-hmm. She has the right amount of ego without being totally ego. She knows when to use it and she knows when to pull it back. And having these relationships that she's vulnerable in an actual human way, not a scripted way,
right,
really, really makes her all the more interesting. And it really sets up the duality between her and the fan, because he is so driven by artifice that we as audience get to see who she is, and he has no idea.
Okay, question for the two of you on that then. Do we understand why he is so obsessed with her? And if we don't, is it a problem? Or is that actually feeding into who he is? It's like, dude, you don't even know why you like this woman so much.
I think it's an easier question to answer if we read him as gay.
Okay. Welcome back to the podcast.
I mean, look, I'm sure a straight guy would be obsessed with some, like, old Broadway film diva at this time, but It is much more believable for me to believe that a gay man is this obsessed with the Hollywood diva who's doing her first Broadway production.
Well, I think it also, to that point, could be then surmised that at this point, where it is very difficult to be gay, and people are socially grappling with identity, as has every generation to some degree, that he is so fixated on this person who gives him his reason for being that it's like, well, if I can obtain the object of my idol worship, then I surely am not this thing.
Yeah.
It's giving my son can't be gay because he's in love with all of these Disney princesses or all of these like powerful women from slasher films and stuff. And you're like, no, that's a sign that your son is gay.
Right. And I think that's a way more interesting read. And I agree with Trace. That being said, it's also that thing where do we need an origin story? I often struggle with this ongoing onslaught that we have with IP when we've exhausted every version of a story. Let's like go back in time and find out that Maleficent was okay, or whatever. I don't know that we need to explain always the origins of evil. I think sometimes things are just broken, and they're broken in a way that is inexplicable, because we know that this kind of person exists, right? Gay or not, there is a level of person who has a disassociative break with reality where they don't understand the barriers and boundaries of relationships with other people. And especially now in an era of social media where parasocial relationships get very, very conflated, where people see people online or listen to them on podcasts and think that they know the person when in fact they don't. And we've seen it all throughout history. I mean, you mentioned the assassination of John Lennon. That man had an invested relationship with John Lennon that John Lennon was not aware of. We know that the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan was on the part of someone who was so obsessed with Jodie Foster, he decided that he was going to do that for her. She didn't even know he existed. And so this is kind of one of those things, like it could be gay guy is so obsessed with Broadway diva that he must become this crazy monster in horror movie lens, or it could just be evil is evil, you know?
Yeah, I don't think it hurts the film necessarily, but I will say every time I look at the runtime of the film, I think, there's maybe 5 to 7 minutes that we could play around with and maybe do a little bit more for some of these set pieces. You know, as we said, draw out some of the tension, maybe let them play out a little bit more organically. But also, you know, the next scene that we have in the film is where we see Douglas at work in this record store. And we only get 2 scenes here, right? Where he's got a coworker who's a bit of a slacker, played by Dana Delaney. She doesn't even have a character name, but she took a really long lunch hour, and Douglas feels super pissed off about, oh, well, you're not even here. You're not even doing the thing. But he's so confident that he is right. He ends up later on complaining to his boss and saying, well, you should get rid of her. And the boss is like, what are you talking about? You're the one I'm getting rid of.
I also think that the second scene in this record store, he's arguing with the boss. It's about the organization of the musical theater section of the vinyls, which, again, gay.
Yes. There's some good telltale signs. Like, we're going to get to the moment where we actually go to a gay bar so that we can get someone to take the fall. And part of me is like, okay, this could just be a savvy villain who knows I can pin this on somebody. But part of me is also thinking, how do you know how to cruise in the gay bar if you aren't a little bit queer? And I love that the film doesn't need to explain itself, but it also does leave a lot of tantalizing readings for us to then unpack.
Well, you say, though, the film doesn't need to explain itself, but do you also think that's maybe a resistance to explaining itself because of the time period we're filming this movie?
Maybe. Yeah.
I do love in this record store scene, though, where she talks about the cool band that she's going to go see. And it basically reads as like, we're going to go see the Ramones. And he's like, well, I'm going to go see Ethel Merman. Fuck you.
Your taste in music is wrong, and mine is right, and mine is Broadway. We also do get to see that he has a sister named Miriam, who is played by Kulani Lee. She stops by to check on him because she's worried. Normally, they only seem to see him when he needs money, but apparently he hasn't been coming around. And I mean, I think it's also very easy to read. There's some mental health issues that maybe the sister is aware of. And the fact that we haven't seen him or he hasn't been coming around could suggest that he is spiraling or dissociating or losing connection with the real world.
And we will never see this character again.
No.
Yeah.
She didn't care that much to check back in.
I mean, because there aren't any deleted scenes on this Blu-ray release either. So either we had them and then they just weren't recoverable, or because I would go back to what you were saying, Joe. Yeah, it feels like there are maybe some scenes missing here. And so I don't know. I would believe that slower scenes, maybe character scenes or dialogue heavy scenes, were trimmed down or cut out entirely to up the pacing of the film, since we were aiming for more of that slasher film.
Yeah, I could believe it for sure. Okay, so in the morning, Douglas spies Sally climbing into a cab, and she is en route to JoJo's Dance Factory. And this is our first rehearsal for our musical, and I love the fact that we have both dancers here, as well as live musicians. We have a pianist and somebody playing the fucking drums, and I just said, we're spending some money on this production.
We are. And let's get into this rehearsal, because the rehearsal kicks off something that I'm obsessed with in this movie, and that every time I watch it, I really zero in on. And it's the amount of just random people who kiss her on the lips.
Yes.
She hits that studio, and the choreographer that she works with most directly, that's played by Reed Jones, he immediately smooches her, and he will continue to do so every time we see him and her together throughout the rest of the film. But she is just like lips upon lips. Everybody's kissing Lauren Bacall. Maybe she didn't like this movie because she got mono. I don't know.
First it was chickenpox, then it was mono.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things is that, again, we're really establishing the character star power, because she walks in and we either know it before or we confirm it here that she is new to musicals, right? So she says, I'm here to watch. I'm going to learn from you folks. We've got a stand-in who's showing her the moves that she's going to be doing with this clearly far more accomplished dancer. But all of these people are in awe. When she walks in the room, everything stops and it's super exciting. And she's basically like, hi, how's it going?
But what is interesting to cycle back to the gay conversation and how the movie handles it, or maybe doesn't handle it. This scene does some work in terms of it presents a real portrait of what the musical theater landscape of Broadway at the time, and now, let's be honest, would look like. This choreographer who I jokingly, brought up, even though he does literally kiss her the second she walks in, he is one of the only people in the room that we get in terms of how it's constructed that they have a prior relationship. Like, she's like, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And he is definitely a gay character. It is very clear. It is not hidden. It is put almost within the context of the scene. And she clearly loves him. He loves her. And it's that sort of symbiosis of what a healthy relationship between diva and gay colleague and person versus what maybe the fan is. Because none of these people in this room are portrayed in any like, oh, we have to hide the gayness. So I think that there is an interesting duality happening in terms of how the film handles any queer subtext or overt text, because I think that, the filmmaker very much is like, okay, we're in a rehearsal space on Broadway. Gay.
But that's then you're kind of like splitting the film, though, because so it's like the scenes within the musical world which do not involve Michael Biehn's character, those seem much more open and accepting, whereas everything handling Michael Biehn's character feels a bit more playing close to the vest.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, right? Because once again, we're cross-cutting because the characters aren't interacting, but we need to know what Douglas is doing when Sally is off doing other things and vice versa. And this is the instance where he's writing the letter talking about how he's going to become her lover soon. So it's it is an interesting contrast, right? Where she's coming into this very welcoming, very queer space. And meanwhile, we've got the queer-coded antagonist saying, I'm going to rail you soon, old lady.
One thing I wanted to shout out for any musical theater people, the choreographer who Bacall has the shorthand with in this scene that is portrayed as seemingly her friend is played by Reed Jones, which I mentioned earlier. Reed Jones was in the original Broadway cast of Cats. He played Skimble Shanks. He unfortunately did pass away in 1989 of AIDS, but he had a very prolific career on Broadway in West Side Story and A Chorus Line. So I think that this movie very smartly involved people from this actual world. Right.
Yeah, like this whole scene when she walks in, I was like, oh, wow, Lauren Bacall just walked into fame.
Yeah.
Got it. It's great. Like, it's very fun. I mean, I love watching New York set movies of this era, and I think that's the other reason I pull back to Eyes of Laura Mars, because that's just a couple years earlier. But New York is so fucking exciting and vibrant in movies of this era. And I think this movie even knows it, because there is this scene coming up where Douglas is practicing what he's going to say to his boss, but he's doing a Taxi Driver monologue in the mirror, you know, like, you gotta fire her. Hey, you should fire her.
Yeah. Also, I guess that corrects my previous statement. Douglas does have dialogue only in those 2 record store scenes before the end of the film.
Yeah, most of the time he's by himself, though. Yeah. Okay, so yes, I did want to highlight when he tries to make the pitch that this coworker, Dana Delaney, should be fired. His pep talk to himself, he includes the words, I know she's attractive, if you like that kind.
Which, okay, but like, we get what that means. But like, what do you think they thought it meant? Like, because she has short hair or something? Like, she looks a bit more counterculture, I guess. I don't know.
My favorite thing about queer stuff during this era of film is the queer stuff that's so obviously queer to us, queer people, but was so easy to ignore by everybody else. And it goes back to the long-standing conversation about A Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yeah.
How people are like, how did they not know that this was gay? Well, if you think in the context of the time, it just was not something that was discussed. Now we see Mark Patton walk into the bar in Nightmare 2 and we're like, that is a gay leather bar.
Yes.
But for moms in Nebraska who went with their kids,
they're not thinking that.
Like, no, they were like, oh, he went to a biker bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so to that point in this scene, he's just like, if you like that sort of thing, we're like, hey, queen. Meanwhile, somebody else is just like, he called her a whore, you know?
Yeah, or he hates her taste in music, or Tracy, he doesn't like her hair or something. And I mean, I do love that multiplicity of readings. It's why I always get my back up whenever somebody tries to suggest that there's a right way or a wrong way to read a film. And I'm like, no, everybody gets to come to the table with their own thoughts and beliefs, as long as you can then support it with the argument.
Yeah, lived experience goes a long way to how you view something.
Very much.
Shockingly enough, right? Okay, so we do get this great overhead shot when Douglas finds out that Belle has effectively cut him off, because the most recent letter was lewd. I think she even calls it pornographic. Mm-hmm. So he's cut off. He's not going to have access to Sally Ross anymore. We get this fantastic extreme overhead bird's eye shot of Douglas sitting in this field of empty benches. And this is where he wonders if Belle has lesbian tendencies. And to me, that's another queer coded element where he's saying, oh, well, this woman is trying to block my access. That must mean she's queer. And it's like, no, boy, you're queer.
I will say I clocked this overhead shot because it's like he's sitting in like a sea of benches, and most of the benches are your standard, like, you know, metallic color, but he's sitting in one that's like a very like deep seafoam green almost. This is apparently a reference to a very similar shot Roman Polanski uses in his film The Tenant, in which a man sits in a not a sea per se, but like a collection of green folding chairs in a forest.
Okay.
I love all of this just open seating left around.
Right?
But this is one of those examples of a shot in the film where you're like, oh, this is like,
it's artistic.
It's more
beautiful.
Artistic than what I would expect from this movie.
Which is, I think, us not being fair or generous to the film, because the film is actually, there's a ton of shots like this. I actually do think this is a very well-directed movie. It's just, to me, I want it to take its time a little bit more often. That's my biggest criticism of it.
But then that's the issue with the editing and the screenplay per se, not necessarily with Bianchi. Because again, even though he's the director, how much control did he have over the final cut? I'm not really entirely sure of. But yeah,
he was told to tighten it up.
But I'm sure you can see, this is a commercial director who, again, did high-end commercials. Like, these weren't just like flybys. Who was like, this is my shot. I'm going to make it count. And I do think that in that regard, he does.
Sure,
No.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, I said at the very beginning, I think it's a very lushly shot film, and I stand by that. I think there are a lot of really beautiful visual cues in this and moments, but yeah, the editing really, really truncates some of those moments.
Yeah. Okay, let's introduce a new character that Sally's going to cozy up with, platonically. So David Branham, he is played by Kurt Johnson. I was trying to figure out, is he the director of this play or just somebody who's part of the cast? Never really could get my finger on it. Yeah, but this is the guy that walks her to the house door. He will become the victim in the pool. But here's a great shot. There's a moment where we just hold as they walk out of frame on this busy New York street, and we wait. And then Douglas walks in and they don't meet, but it's because Douglas has come to deliver a letter. He's hand delivering the letter to JoJo's studio. But I love that instead of doing an edit, we just let the camera roll.
I think that the character of David is interesting, to your point, because it is unclear what his role is. I mean, he seemingly is involved, but I also feel like, as much as people like to say the show must go on, if your director was slashed from chest to, to...
We're taking a brief hiatus.
Yeah, that show would maybe pause.
You would hope, right?
I mean, to be clear though, like whenever she has to go on to go to her beach house or whatever for 2 weeks before the opening of the show,
oh my God.
The second they're like, oh yeah, your stalker killed himself, we're good to go. They were like, okay, cool, come to opening night. Hope you remembered everything.
Well, I don't think that they were like, she doesn't need to do a lot of vocal warm-ups, so...
Well, what is it, that low howl she expresses as music per Michael Biehn?
Wow. Whereas I just wrote in my notes, it's a lot of spoken singing songs.
She is the Rex Harrison of Broadway divas.
Yes, that's a good example. Some of these, a remarkable woman you want to bathe in her light. The way that she moves indisputably proves God got it right.
What is this musical about again?
I think she's meant to be a woman everyone loves. That's it. That's the end of the story.
It's a musical about a great lady. Yeah. Okay, so Douglas ends up riding up the elevator with Belle, but of course they don't know each other, so there's no animosity, there's no interaction. It's another fun little quirky beat, but he does realize who she is because the letter gets delivered to her because she's the secretary. So now he knows what to look for. Immediately crosses the street and buys a knife.
I didn't even clock that.
Yeah, drive.
Yeah. Okay, so at home, this is where Sally and Belle are really disagreeing about the approach that we're taking to fan letters. So Belle claims that she is protecting Sally, but Sally says, no, you're upsetting the fans. So
yeah.
This is another really good character moment for the two of them because we get to understand that Belle absolutely loves Sally. She's worked for her for 7 years, but she's not always easy to work for.
Right.
Yeah, I like this scene for Belle, less so for Sally, if only because clearly this argument they're having isn't really about the fan of the letter or whatever. It's something about this whatever's going on in Sally's personal life, but she doesn't seem as frustrated with all of that for me to believe that she would snap at Belle in this way.
This to me feels very reminiscent of how I fight, where I don't always say the thing to the person I'm upset with, or the thing that I'm lashing out about is not actually what I'm mad about, but I can do it to a person that I love because I know that they will have to forgive me. And I truly do think that, do I think that Belle and Sally have a lesbian relationship? No, but I do think that they have a closeness where Belle is probably Sally's best friend.
Yeah. Well, I think fame is very isolating, so it is the idea that these are the people in her life, and they're going to see the best and the worst of her. What I do think is interesting in this scene is Sally says, we've had weirdos before. She points out, this isn't the first time we've had intense letters, but it's a kind of an obtuse decision. I mean, there's a willing ignorance on Sally's part, because Belle's literally saying, this is worse. Yeah, this isn't the same.
Yeah, and Sally's kind of like, just deal with it. How come this is an issue? Why are we still having this conversation? But I also like that we don't let this linger. You know, we end this conversation with Sally softening and...
Well, because Belle stands up for herself, thank God.
Yes. Yeah. We should note, though, Douglas is now actively sitting on a park bench in front of Sally's apartment. So we saw him here earlier, but he now knows what Belle looks like, and he also knows exactly where Sally lives. So he is inching closer and closer.
His schedule at the record store must be really lax.
He's been fired by now, so his day is fully open. We got no other responsibility.
Well, he's got to go back to his sister to ask for money then.
I guess so. Maybe that's one of the deleted scenes. I lost my job at the record store because...
And I still got to stalk this woman, so I need me some money.
Do you have knife money?
True. All right, so David arrives to take Sally out. So Jake is not available because that's the ex. He's just in town. So yeah, we're going to ask David to be our accompaniment for this party. I call it a funky party because that's whatever song is playing on this soundtrack when we show up. But we do have to interact with Jake and his much younger girlfriend, Heidi Callan, who is played by Leslie Rogers. And I love that she's perfectly nice. She is obviously younger, but, you know, she doesn't look 20 or anything.
No,
so I love that she's probably meant to be about early 30s.
Yeah, but they could have played this character as like, oh, she's like the bimbo ditz of the moment in this industry, and like he's lecherous going after this young girl who's like 20 years his junior at least. But no, I like that they don't do that, but I also don't like that this really comes to nothing. I mean, like it's like, oh, here you go, this is what Jake's doing. Heidi's not a character.
Yeah, she's a haircut.
Yeah.
That haircut is, I mean, kind of great,
severe.
But it's very severe. Yeah. Especially just because, Sally Ross's look is that old-fashioned glamour, right? She's got the soft curls. I don't know how much of a halo lighting we're giving Lauren Bacall, but she's continually presented as just easygoing glamour. And when we see Heidi, she's looking very haute couture.
Heidi's haircut is, and this is going to be maybe unkind. I don't mean it as terrible as it's about to sound. But if you're familiar with Nick Kroll's publicity character, he has that whole moment where he's like, I got bangs. That's Heidi. She got bangs.
She got bangs. Maybe recently. Okay, so we're having this uncomfortable, semi-awkward interaction at the party, and this is when Douglas is going after Belle in, I'm going to say, I think the most effective moment of violence in this film. I really like the pool scene, but I do think it's way too short. Whereas following Belle through this subway, we are actually taking our time. And this is basically an uninterrupted long take until we get the edit when he slashes her.
Yeah, I think it's well done. It does feel out of place compared to everything that's come before. Like, yeah, this feels like a slasher stalker sequence. The extreme close-ups on her face as he does draw this straight razor down her cheek is pretty intense, and as well as the long hold we get on his face after he rubs his blood-soaked gloves on his own face.
Yeah. It's very giallo-coded too, right?
Definitely. This is, in a lot of ways, the most giallo-coded moment, as you said. It's the best moment of violence in the movie. I love a subway stalking scene. I don't know.
Oh, yes.
There is just a vibe, whether it's like Maniac or American Werewolf. There's just Subway's grimy darkness.
Well, I think it's something too about a location that feels like it should be heavily populated with people that is not heavily populated with people.
Yeah. Shout out to Exit 8. Very, very different vibes. But if you do love some subway horror, that entire movie is set in a subway.
I think that's where we're getting into the idea of a liminal space here. I mean, I don't think this film really takes advantage of it that much, but just the mere concept of it.
No. I will say one of the other things I like about the film, and it was something that I struggled with the first time that we covered it for the editorial series, the editing sometimes obfuscates what has actually happened. So here I was like, well, she's dead. So to discover that she's just been facially scarred and she's still definitely alive and she will come back as secretary later in the film, I'm not going to say it cheapens this moment, but the way we edit, it's clearly open-ended enough to say, did he just kill her?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, because again, this was a reshoot. This is something they went back and shot later. So was Belle ever meant to be attacked at all in the original version of the screenplay? Because there was another scene later where we visit Belle in the hospital. She's got the facial bandages on. So I'm like, okay, did something happen to her? Or was that hospital scene also a reshoot? Because the next time we see Belle after that, she's fine. Yeah.
And appears to have no scarring at all.
Well, she does, but I think that's where the restoration really kicks in, because it's there, but the makeup's very light.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that if you were just freshly out of the hospital, having been slashed in the face, it would be a little more pronounced.
Stitchy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what the original, again, if she was even attacked or approached by Douglas. It would make sense, again, just in terms of escalating his stalking. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So the wake of this violent act, Sally is questioned by a new character. So let's introduce a very young-looking Hector Elizondo as Inspector Raphael Andrews.
His name is Raphael Andrews, but can we just call him Inspector Hector for the rest of this recording?
Inspector Hector? Oh. Yes, absolutely. You know what? If we could do detective photographer.
For 1 hour photo.
Yeah, that we could do that.
Inspector Hector.
Yeah, so he is obviously interested in the recent letters that we were talking about with Belle, but of course the problem is that Sally never saw any of these. Belle handled all of the correspondence, so Sally's kind of useless. She only knows that this guy is a wacko, he's a crazy, so that's not very helpful. What is helpful is that Jake is here by her side, and he offers to stay. But when he talks about, the timing's not really great, I was supposed to go to a thing with Heidi, we don't get our backs up, but Sally definitely says, okay, fine, maybe you should just fucking go.
But at the same time, though, I do think that Inspector Hector is set up as a potential love interest for Sally, which, honestly, their little, non-date, I was really invested in.
Chemistry. Yeah. Breakfast for dinner, where he's wearing that shiny silver shirt.
Yes!
It's like, oh, he's data night ready. He's going to go to the disco after this.
Well, also, I mean, it is just a little bit of Hollywood magic that we know Hector Elizondo can come in and woo the grand dames of cinema. He just does it. He always does. Mm-hmm. He leaves this movie and he goes and picks up Julie Andrews. We know that's just how he did it.
That's how he operates. Yeah. The fan should really be taking cues from him in terms of how to woo. You don't write a fucking letter where you say, I want to fuck you.
I mean, but that's to the point where he disappears from the movie at a certain point. I'm like, I guess we're just not going to bring him back for anything.
I mean, maybe we couldn't get him back for the reshoots.
Probably not, yeah.
Okay, so he ends up going to speak to Belle the next day, but she can't recall Douglas's last name. So she can only remember Douglas, but not Breen, which is unfortunate. And then we go to rehearsal, and this is where Douglas watches David kiss Sally on the cheek. So oh, David, your time has come. And this is where we get the YMCA pool scene. Folks, if you wanted to see a very young Michael Biehn looking all hot, we get to see him. I mean, he's wearing boxers, but I don't understand logistically how he kept this straight razor in these baggy boxers long enough to get into the pool.
Joe, no, we can't think about logistics during this. How he is not caught immediately after this happens also doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. He could have just clenched the straight razor in his cheeks.
In the butt cheeks, okay. Yeah. Yes, I would have accepted that. It looks like he's got it tucked into the waistband of these, but I will say this is an incredibly busy pool. There appears to be no order to how people are swimming. Some people are treating it like a bathhouse. They're just kind of lounging. They're enjoying the water. David just jumps right in and starts doing laps, but he's going the wrong way. He's going the short width as opposed to the length. Anyway, it's fine. But Douglas just gets under the water, and we just hold this straight razor so that when David swims over top of us, and we get the view from above, so we don't, we start under the water and then we cut to above and we see the blood pooling out. I just wanted about 1 minute more. I wanted to see maybe Douglas try to match the lap swimming or something, or maybe take a couple of swipes. It's great. It's just a little too short.
Yeah. And then Douglas gets up out of the pool and just walks away. No one questions him no one's like, what happened? Stop that man.
And I think we will come to realize that David dies from this, right?
Which admittedly was not clear to me until I started doing research for this movie.
Well, it's like Belle lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
But David dies.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
And the same with Elsa. Like, Elsa and David both get cut on the chest, and apparently this is enough to kill them.
And Elsa, by the way, so she did not die in the original script. In the original script, she was found alive, but she was tied up and had her head shaved.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, that was a new... Because I think also the how'd you like to get fucked with a meat cleaver, that might have been an additional line because they added the murder to the scene.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. They had to drain that pool, by the way. That's just...
100%.
Yeah, there's a lot of cleaning that has to go into that. That's a mess.
Ooh, yeah.
Because I think David is also queer-coded, is he not? What do we think?
Like, I think everybody in this movie is queer-coded.
Fair.
Except for Lauren Bacall and James Garner.
Yes. The older people, they can be straight. You know why? Because they have a beach house property. That's how rich they are. They're not queer.
No,
but where is that beach house? Are we in Provincetown? Question mark?
It's the New Jersey beach, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh my God. The Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
Maybe it was different in the 80s.
Sally Ross just hanging out with, what's his face? Snooki and the other ones. Yeah.
Quick sidebar. Did you know that Snooki has a ghost hunting show that's only in Canada? This is true. I just discovered this recently. Yes.
Wow.
So Joe, this is your time. You could
This is for me.
Really doing the new podcast. It's called Snooki Paranormal Rookie, and it only airs on Canadian television.
Jesus Christ.
I'm going to have to tell my husband about this because... I mean, I don't think he has any relation with Jersey Shore, but any kind of ghost hunt. I mean, Kristen Stewart had one, Kesha had one, like Shannon Doherty had one.
all the stars, they've got them. Okay, so we get a new letter, and Douglas expects a response within 24 hours because he is starting to run out of patience. So once again, it's not, we're creeping into lewd, lecherous territory. It's now escalating demands and entitlement. And Jake is really frustrated. What are the police going to do to protect Sally? Because clearly she's still the target, even though we're now starting to go after people in and around her circle.
Well, and also she does, when she's talking to Jake about the fan, she says, and I quote, "There's some fruitcake out there who apparently wants to kill me."
Yep.
So, loophole though here in Douglas's plan. I expect a response in 24 hours. Did he include a return address?
Yes, because I think Belle had written him to say you're cut off, so she knew how to reach him, but obviously now she's in the hospital, she can't remember his last name, but presumably if we look through the letters, we should have been able to see outgoing correspondence. But yeah, he seems to firmly believe he has provided Sally with the means to get in touch.
I think you're onto something, Michael, because so basically he did include return addresses at a certain point, but I think
not recently.
Well, so during the pretty overhead bench scene, I think in his voiceover for that, when he's writing that letter, he says, "I'm going to not include my return address on future letters," which is really just lazy exposition to get out of a plot hole at that point.
Sure.
But yeah, I think, again, don't quote me on it, even though we're literally being quoted in this recording. But I think that is said in that bench scene.
So this is why we need it to be that his address is discovered, but it's a P.O. box or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, it's fine. So several days later, Inspector Hector informs Sally that she's obviously next on the hit list, so we firmly believe that he is going to target her, and she tells the inspector that he makes her feel safe. This is where it's hard to deny that there is chemistry between the actors. He is there at dinner time, she is cooking for him, and you think, okay, are we trying to set them up as he's a viable alternative to Jake because Jake is with Heidi and cannot be relied upon right now?
I think so. I mean, this feels like a romance movie scene in this entire bit, and I like it. It feels like a drop plot thread.
Yeah. This is the Faye Dunaway, Tommy Lee Jones sequence where he is taking her on a picnic in The Eyes of Laura Mars.
Literally, I was like, what was Faye Dunaway and Tommy Lee Jones? Oh, right. The other one that I keep getting this movie confused with.
Just that, yes. Okay, let's cut to some terrible choreography and lighting as the cast of Never Say Never do a run-through on stage. And this is where Sally has a tiff with the director, which is clearly not David because somebody else is here complaining that she doesn't move fast enough and she tries to blame the lighting guy.
It's probably Dr. Pepper.
This feels like ageist commentary, does it not? Where the guy's like, you're just not moving fast enough. I need you to start earlier. And I was like, is the movie trying to say something about how old she is?
He does say it pretty like it's a very pointed remark, but yes. I'm also like, yeah, but that's kind of what the choreography requires. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It's an interesting beat in a movie that only occasionally references how old Lauren Bacall actually is. You know, she talks about doing the musical for the first time and how she's like just a little too old for this kind of shit. Like she feels a little embarrassed to be doing it. And there are moments like that that feel as if it is commenting on the fact that Lauren Bacall has not been an actress in the public realm for a little while, or maybe, oh, is she being demeaned to do this horror film? And part of me thinks that this is a weird bit of meta commentary, but I don't always know that the film knows it's doing it.
Yeah, it's hard to say because the film also navigates trying to portray her as younger than she is, which goes back to the conversation that we had, which
49.
Which I do think is a bummer because I think that there is such rich conversation to be had about the ageism that would be, you know, not only would be, but is clearly at play in the conversation here and possibly behind the scenes of the making of the movie.
Right. Yeah. It feels like if this movie was being made even a little bit later, but definitely today, we would be making much more deliberate efforts to acknowledge some of that. I think the film would note that it's an interesting part of its commentary. Okay. So, yeah, we've got the fruitcake comment. Jake briefly returns, but I will say I really like the moment where Sally advocates for, I don't like our relationship as it stands because I'm the one who always has to lean on you, and I want a relationship where I can give and take. Again, good character work. Scenes that I think conventionally would have been cut because they're disrupting the flow, they're upsetting the pacing, where are the murders, and so on. But I really like this beat for the two characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it goes back to what we were saying. The nuance is what makes this movie work. I think that if it was just her as actress being afraid and a killer who is increasingly obsessed with her, that's fine. We've seen that.
That's fine. Yeah.
There are many variations of that. But by having these moments where it's like, hey, I still love you and here's why, and I would love this. I'm a big star, but I also have these concerns about my relationships or, you know, my friendship, or I feel isolated. The fact that they took the time to keep that, but also do it to begin with, is really interesting. And I think it does set this movie apart because it's not just a movie about some megastar and a killer, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Trace, you mentioned Smile 2, and obviously it's a very different kind of movie, but we are trying to interrogate the isolation that a celebrity figure experiences and what it's like to be put into a harrowing situation on top of that. But I think that movie ultimately is only interested in doing that character work up to a certain point, and then it's like, no, we need to, you know, get our wild dancer choreography and car crashes and other things.
Yeah, and I do, because both of you had said something similar about how being famous is isolating, and I think that is a misconception among non-famous people. They're like, oh, famous people have people around them all the time, they're so happy that, but I think because of maybe not exactly situations like this, but it's like you have to be a bit protective of yourself with who you are talking to. So yeah, it's not just, oh, you're trying to stay away from danger, but it's also you don't ever really know when you meet someone how genuine they are, or if they're just trying to get something out of you. And I think that when you begin every single interaction with that thought in your head, yeah, that is pretty fucking isolating.
Yeah. Because even in this film, right, we started the conversation off by questioning what is it that Douglas is attracted to Sally for? And the fact that it's a mystery is interesting because we can plug and play whatever we want. But the reality is him thinking they should be lovers, that she should want to be with him. And it's like, it's not even that you don't even know her. It's that you don't even know if you have chemistry, if you're her type, if you have anything in common. Like, he's so deluded in that capacity, but it's just because he thinks he knows her as a star.
Exactly. Yeah. He thinks he knows her.
Yeah. I mean, it is a film that presupposes the conversation about parasocial relationship. I mean, it's a parasocial peril tale. And I think that it's interesting to consider what he knows about her, but it's also interesting to consider what he knows about himself. I mean, we don't know anything about Douglas other than he works at a record store.
Has a sister.
Yeah, has a sister, and that he's obsessed with this actor. And there is a degree of maybe that's it. Maybe there is nothing to this person
more to him
other than his obsession. And so for him, this is the sole driving factor of his life. Without even doing the introspection, like, I let the sun and moon and stars, surround this lady. She doesn't even know I exist. I don't even know I exist,
Yeah. Who am I? I mean, and that seems to be one of the things the film is maybe trying to say, is that without Sally, he has nothing. And that's why he has to continually escalate the violent behavior, because if he's cut off from her, who is Douglas Breen?
Yeah, I remember, I don't know what source it was or what version, because a character is monolithic as Batman, has many, many tendrils. Right. But I remember there was a Batman story that centered on this very idea that the Joker was not interested in killing Batman because without Batman, the Joker ceases to exist. There is no Joker without Batman, but there is Batman without the Joker culturally. And so that is really interesting, where when your whole existence centers around your relationship, your opposition, your connection to other, who are you without that person? What is the end game? I mean, not to jump ahead, but Douglas can only die here, no matter the outcome of the movie, because if he killed her, who is he? Nobody.
Yeah. Or you ended on a really dark note where he walks out and he sees somebody new. And that becomes his new fixation. But also, everything about the movie tells us he only has one person, and that is Sally Ross.
But that does make me more curious than about the book, then, given that he does kill her. Like, what makes him want to kill her in the book? Or is it something that he does, like, unconsciously, where it's just like a fit of rage? I don't know, and I know we're not talking about the book, but you bring up that good point, Michael, so it makes me question it.
And I can tell you that every review, so it turns out I could have gotten this from the library if I had planned accordingly. I would have gotten it out, and maybe I'll follow back up at a later date. But almost every review that I have read of the book says that the ending is shocking and grim, and it's one of the key selling features of the book. So I've gathered that it's quite abrupt. Like, he kills her, and the book just ends immediately.
Oh.
So there is no after she's gone.
No fallout,
No. Speaking of death, though, we are up to poor Elsa the maid's death. So, as you said, Trace, this was a reshoot. We hadn't planned to do this to this woman. I have to emphasize the overhead shot of him just bursting out of this closet and getting her. It's scary. It's really good.
Yeah, it feels very Hitchcockian. And again, the shot will get, the overhead shot we'll get later of her. Actually, all the overhead shots of this movie are really good.
Yeah.
They paid for that crane and they were going to use it.
They sure did.
So he proceeds to smash up most of Sally's apartment. So he's slashing this portrait that she has in the hall. He's destroying all of the photographs and I think the living room or the dining room table and so on.
But this is also a really good shot too. Like, basically before he slashes this portrait of Sally, like, we have this like a lengthy like single take of Douglas slowly walking down the hallway as that painting is in the foreground, like right in front of us the entire time. So we're just waiting for him to come and slash this painting.
Yeah. And the other thing that we're waiting for, because we're still doing this, Sally and Douglas are living almost a conjoined life via the editing. So as he's doing all of this destruction in her apartment, we see her being escorted by her police presence. So this would be Emily Stoltz, played by Anna Maria Horsford. They're coming in. So we watch them get out of the cab, come into the building, getting off the elevator, and you're meant to wonder, are they going to discover him in progress, destroying her apartment? Like, is this the climax of the film? But he's long gone by the time they get in. So it's just good editing. And this is, yes, where we get the famous line, "Dearest bitch."
I do love Dear. Honestly, I think "Dearest bitch" is more effective than "How'd you like to get fucked with the meat cleaver?" Because how'd you like to get fucked with the meat cleaver seems so out of character compared to
rude.
Everything. I mean, again, he's been crude, but yeah, he hasn't been this graphic, I feel, in his letters up until this point. Which, this is, I guess, meant to be the turning point, but it's so abrupt. It's so jarring.
Yeah. Like Hannibal would eat people for less.
Yeah.
It's true. And I think that even though he is turning a corner, his whole being is trying to appeal to her. So the "how would you like to get fucked with the meat cleaver" is, I mean, it's a great line.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel in conjunction with his presentation. The idea that the rest of the movie, even in his desperation, it's like, pay attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to be in love. And the increased desperation and madness that follows, sort of the threat. I mean, he does threaten her, but he doesn't threaten her like this. So it's really, it is an interesting line. It does feel like something that was added later.
Yeah. Would this movie benefit instead of Douglas going after her in this climax? Because really from here on, it's okay, she has to flee and then she'll come back for opening after he fakes his own death. And then we get the finale in the theater. Would it be more effective if he went after Jake? Considering that Jake is the one who's distracting, who's pulling her focus, who is her romantic interest, because Jake is back in the picture here. You know, oh, this guy got into your house. By the way, in the book, the way he manages to get in, because we don't even ever know how does he break into her apartment. He's just there. In the book, he dresses up as a pregnant woman because no one looks at pregnant women. So he just manages to sneak inside the building and get into her apartment that way.
I think that you raised a really good point about going after Jake, because he doesn't even really engage with Jake at all.
Nope. No.
And I think that that's fascinating too. I mean, maybe it is a after effect of just the limited time they had with James Garner, or maybe it has to do with the reshoots and the reconstruction of the movie, or maybe it just has to do with he does not see anybody other than her.
Right.
Yes, he does acknowledge people are around her, but he doesn't really focus on them the way that he focuses on her. He attacks Belle because he thinks that Belle is the barrier to her. He attacks David because he thinks that David is pulling the attention. So yes, I think the argument could be made that he would go after Jake in that way. But to pivot the whole last act for him to go after Jake is interesting, because I don't know if it works, but also it just makes me realize he never really acknowledges Jake's existence
Not at all. Yeah, there's no scene where we see Douglas note that Jake exists, right? We see him seeing her interact with other people, but never Jake.
No, because even like with Inspector Hector, where it's like, yeah, like, if you're wanting to build up the slasher horroriness of it all, you could easily have that be a kill, because he's like, oh, you're moving in on my woman.
Right.
Yeah. The closest Douglas ever gets to referencing Jake is at the end when they have their confrontation and he says, you know, something to the degree of, am I not famous enough for you? That's the closest he ever gets to acknowledging that there are other men in her life that she gives attention to. Otherwise, he never mentions him. He never engages with him. They don't even have a scene together.
No. And even that line, it could actually not even be about Jake. It could just be, oh, you're such a big star and I'm a nobody.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting. It feels, I'm not going to suggest like some missing component of the screenplay, but it could have been interesting to explore. All this to say, the maid has been killed and Sally is getting the fuck out of town. I love the fact that she drugs this police escort. So this poor woman just wakes up in the morning and Sally has packed a bag and fled, and nobody knows, except we do get, news reports or gossip columnists saying Sally Ross has apparently fled the city and nobody knows where she is.
Can I say about the drugging of the police escort, one thing that I do love, and it does connect to the end, is then that lady comes to the show in the finale and gives her like a hug and a kiss, because everybody
hunky-dory
Sally. And she's just like, and then everybody she's just like, oh my God, you were so good. Bitch, if you drugged me and I was knocked out for 12 hours, no way am I coming to your show. Sorry.
Yeah, it's going to be a fuck you. I'm going to send you hate mail. I'm going to be your news stalker because what the fuck? So yeah, this is when Sally goes to the beach house, and we don't know how much time passes apart from the fact that we know 2 weeks have elapsed, because that's how long the production went into, okay, we're going to do some other shit. We're going to bring somebody in as a stand-in. We're going to rework certain things. But like this part of the film, I don't want to say it drags, but it is weird that we escalated things so quickly and then all of a sudden we just really pull it back so that we can have more good character work between her and Jake. But all of a sudden this feels like a Meryl Streep movie or like Diane Keaton or rom-com. We're back to rom-com territory.
I was going to say, by this point, hadn't Diane Keaton already done Looking for Mr. Goodbar?
Yeah. This is Nicholas Sparks, the fan.
There we go. You know what? I think we actually have a Nicholas Sparks and M. Night Shyamalan movie coming, so we probably should hedge our bets on how he could do this.
Wait, they did a movie together?
They're about to do a movie together.
Oh.
They wrote a book together, and apparently it's being adapted, so... wild.
And by the way, it's called Remain, and it stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Joe, our favorite, Phoebe Dynevor.
Right. Yes, I think it comes out. It was supposed to come out this year, and they bumped it. It's coming out in like February.
Yeah, but it is a supernatural romantic thriller film based on an idea Shyamalan conceived with Nicholas Sparks, who separately wrote the novel version of the same story.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I'm learning about this for the first time. I guess I just overlooked that.
You got some time.
You got a long way. Yeah. You'll see it when the marketing kicks in. Okay. So yes. Any thoughts on Sally and Jake at the beach house? I do like that we're getting weird little cameos from, I imagine they would have been well known, like this caretaker who checks in on her and is like, oh, sorry, Ms. Rouse, I didn't realize you were going to be here. Ed Crawley. Okay, cool. For this one fucking scene.
That's what happens, though, when you're, like, super famous, like Lauren Bacall. You could just be like, hey.
Come to this movie.
Call in a favor.
Yeah.
Come to the Jersey Shore. I've got Snooki, and I need you here for this one scene.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we're having gimlets in the evening. You're just gonna...
Love a gimlet, though. Okay, so this is where we get Douglas faking his death. So he goes to a gay bar. And we've got this young man in bar, played by Terrence Marinin, and we're doing silent cruising. We move the action to a rooftop where we get some brief fellatio, and then Douglas kills this guy. It's unclear exactly how he does it. I think we're meant to assume it's a slit throat. And then we just burn this fucking body.
Well, I thought it was odd because he pulls the straight razor out, not from his own person, but from like whatever rooftop structure is behind him.
He planted it in advance.
That's what I'm saying. So he planted it there before. Why didn't he just keep it in his spot? I don't know. Whatever. It's fine. This is cruel.
Oh, yeah. Totally. No one thinks this is a fun thing, Trace.
No, just in case.
But I'm going back to the part of our conversation where we said there could be folks who would never read a queer element of this film until we get an explicitly queer character, an explicitly queer interaction. This character only exists to be murdered and framed or used in Douglas's plot. And I think in our editorial, we said this feels weirdly homophobic, despite the fact that I think it's also impossible not to read Douglas as queer.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated is what it is. I think that what makes it harder is knowing the era in which it was made and sort of where we were at with the queer rights and gay liberation.
Mm-hmm.
It is very pointed, and it definitely feels homophobic. I think that it also feels self-destructive.
Right.
Whereas I think if this happened in a movie now with the growth, or at least, the onward march of time, we would still perceive it as mean, but we could look at the context a little different. I think that at this moment, though, where, I don't know, it's just really, it's tough because it's hard to feel like it's great representation because
right.
it's assuredly not. But it's also that thing that we talk about often when it comes to queer cinema. Do we really get parity or equality until we represent every version of what queerness can be? And this is
right.
wickedness,
Well, and to a certain extent, this is a scary component of a real queer experience, right?
Yeah.
You meet somebody in a bar, you go home with them, and you discover that they actually have ill intentions or even fatal intentions towards you. Like, we have so many shorts of gay cruising gone wrong. So in some ways, this feels very anticipatory, but it's just, I guess it's odd to me that we talked about Dressed to Kill. This movie also comes out a year after Cruising. This is not a huge component of the fan. It's a single scene, but I think it's hard to watch this movie and not be like, whoa, we're doing this. And it's just a year after we were out there protesting the depiction of queer lifestyles.
Well, but to your point, though, you're right. It's such a small part of this. And so you have to ask yourself, well, why do we have to have him murdering a queer man in a cruising sequence in this movie? Why couldn't he find... Because the whole point of this scene is he's trying to stage his own fake suicide so that everyone believes he is dead. So
yes.
Could he have not gone any other
Anywhere.
way to get this done?
Or is it a testament to the vulnerability of the queer community that you could pick somebody up, nobody raises any eyebrows or asks any questions, and then you can just kill this person and nobody goes looking for them because you just leave a fake suicide note?
And so to Michael's point, it's complicated. And I've really softened it. I don't think, you have to have a queer creator, a queer director on hand to direct something like this. But
no.
I am curious what original queer director Boris Hussein, what he would have done with this scene had he directed the film.
Yeah. Because one has to presume that this was always in here, right? Because this is how we get Sally Ross back to New York so that we can get to the finale, is you have to eliminate the threat of Douglas. So I assume that he always faked his death. It was just a question of how.
Yeah.
I do think it's really interesting when they leave the bar and they pass the wall of 8x10s of all the movie stars. And of course, she's right there in the middle.
Yes.
The idea that it's a queer space that celebrates old Hollywood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we know those places exist. It was very smartly curated. Where do you go to find someone like me that they will believe was me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just interesting. Do you think in this world then he would have been identified as a queer man who was stalking her because of this interaction?
Well, it's interesting because they never say it out loud, do they?
No.
In fact, they seem to go to great lengths to not really talk about anything to do with him. To the point that I made earlier, as much as Douglas doesn't know himself, we don't know Douglas as an audience. He is really only presented with this one thing, with like a little couple bits of information. I think it's actually scarier. What I like is that we don't know anything about him. We don't know who he is, what his complexities are, other than, he has a sister who is annoyed he doesn't call, and he sometimes shows up for money, and he's divisive at work. That's it.
Well, and there's a different version of this movie where, like, it's a character study. Well, actually, I'm sorry. The original version of this movie was a character study, but of the Sally character. Exactly. So, like, the Douglas character there was never going to be an internalization of this character, I guess, unless, again, you're reading the books and you get the letters. Because the letters in the movie are pretty repetitive. Like, they pretty much kind of get the same point across, but they don't give us any insight to Douglas as a character. And I have to believe, if the book is good, that the letters in the book do give insight into Douglas's character.
I will say I don't know that they do. I've gathered that the book is kind of pulpy, like it's very much a thriller. And so the scary part is how he goes from, I love you, I worship you, I think you're so amazing, to, why won't you answer me? Now I'm being treated like a jilted lover. Now I'm going to fucking murder you.
All right.
But, I mean, I will say, I think the more modern contemporary version that does offer a lot of complexity and interiority to the same concept is You, the Penn Badgley show, but also book series. I remember reading that book and thinking it was kind of revelatory about how it forced me as an audience, as a reader, to be in the mind, in the headspace of somebody who is so clearly deranged and stalking women and so on, and you can't get away from it, but it does offer you a certain level of insight. And then of course the show comes out and everybody just goes, oh, he's so hot. Like, okay, we've maybe missed part of that narrative as well.
Yeah. We are a deeply damaged world.
I can fix him, Daddy. Okay, Jake and Sally reunite on the beach. It's beautiful. It's a completely different movie, but you know what? Now that Douglas is dead, we can come back and we can resume our work on Never Say Never. So let's get this production underway.
And boy, oh boy, do we, yeah.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes, it's kind of shit Chicago. And then I wrote, oof, this No Love in Paris number. Yikes.
Well, if you didn't know what the lyrics to No Love in Paris were, that's it.
It's, yeah.
For Hearts Not Diamonds, I just wrote Jesus this number in my notes.
Yeah. So we're getting little tiny versions of each of these musical numbers, and we're also seeing Douglas, who of course is not dead, washing, preparing. He dresses in a tux and he puts, I think, a red rose or something in the lapel.
I wondered if Bret Easton Ellis took inspiration from that scene for American Psycho.
Oh, interesting.
Or I guess maybe Mary Harron actually for the movie, but still.
Right, yeah. So we build to the finale number, Hearts Not Diamonds. Lauren Bacall is not the singer you might want for this number, but she does what she can.
I think it's a thing where I need to hear how the song is supposed to sound before I can judge Bacall's delivery of these lyrics.
Yeah. She's had enough champagne, guys. I think that
the important thing is that Douglas arrives about mid-number, so he's here just in time for the finale. He's got pretty good seats. Obviously, Jake's are better because he's up there in the front, but this apparently good musical does get a standing ovation that we get to watch.
That's the camp.
And it's a stunning success. So everybody is happy to congratulate Sally. Many kisses on the lips, on the cheeks.
Making out with her backstage. It's insane.
Totally.
Wild.
Yeah.
But, and apparently in this universe, the lead actress of your show is the last person to leave the theater.
Yeah, well, it's because I think costumer, I don't know if that's actually Hilda's role. She's played by Parker McCormick, but she is delaying Sally for some reason, in part because she does get killed, but also, yeah, we need to do a bunch of shit and everybody else just fucks right off.
Oh, you know who we have not mentioned once, and he appears in the scene of everybody saying goodbye on their way to the party, is Griffin Dunn. He also is at the rehearsal space.
Right.
And I just love that he's in this because, one, thankless role, but two, it's exactly to the point of just random people popping up in the midst of the fan for the love of Broadway.
Yeah. Because even the ticket attendant, Pop, is played by Robert Wheel. And you think, why are you here for one scene and then you just get stabbed by Douglas? I mean, maybe that's the appeal. Come in, do one day on the shoot, we'll hit you up with some squib prosthetics or whatever, and you could just die. It'll be fun.
Got to keep their SAG card for the
Got to keep the SAG card.
There you go.
Good night, Pop. Good night, Pop. Okay. So, yes, let's get into this climax. This is underwhelming, considering how well filmed and edited the rest of the film is. This is just really lackluster to me.
I actually don't. I mean, I agree. It doesn't have the kind of like pizzazz you would want from like a big climactic end to your thriller movie, but I actually think a lot of like the beating with the riding crop is pretty brutal.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, I agree.
I think some of the shots where we're like under the seats of the auditorium are kind of cool, especially when he's like pulling her by the hair.
Ugh, yeah.
Like there are parts of this that I like, but yeah, as a whole, it doesn't really get the job done.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, well, the writing crop is great because it leaves the facial marks that the savage
welts?
attack on Belle really didn't. That makeup work on him after she slaps him across the face is really good.
Mm-hmm. It is good. Yeah.
I think really what's good in this scene is not the attack. We know that we're not going to get the Laurie Strode, Sidney Prescott knockdown fight out of Lauren Bacall. She wouldn't be interested in doing that, and that's just not who this character is. But what she does do is she acts. She puts on a performance that stops him in his tracks. Like she dresses him down with the power of a Grand Dame. And I think that she, in this moment, really, really delivers something that I think is great, even if the rest of the kind of cat and mouse chase is not finale oomph.
Yeah. I think, she, as you said, does what a diva would, and she kills him with words, not her actions.
Yeah. Well, I think she also reduces him to something of a sad little boy, right? You know, I think some people could read this as he goes in for more of a romantic hug. I read it as he's almost resting his head on her shoulder like you would with a mother figure, as if we're finally acknowledging, I don't know you. I'm definitely not going to sleep with you. You're more of a mom, considering our age difference. And it's quite sad and a little pathetic. And then she capitalizes on this because, of course, her life is still in danger. But I love that even the moment of violence, she just kind of turns the knife back on him and we push it into his neck. But it's not sensational. I do like all of this part. It's just the non-chase parts that don't work for me.
I mean, I just think it's maybe not very well choreographed. I think that's kind of the big sticking point for that sequence. But I will say the close-up shot of that straight razor in his neck is pretty great.
It's pretty good.
And I think to Joe's point, the fact that she just turns it around and shoves it up there is met with little resistance. But in a way, I kind of like it because I think in that moment, he realizes what is the outcome here. Like,
he's given up.
Yeah, he lets her do it, I think, to some degree.
Yeah. And then I think that this final moment where we see him sitting in the theater and then we pull up in the crane shot and get the big aerial, it's just him in the big empty theater. That's fucking great.
It is, but I also just love this idea that after killing him, she propped his body up in one of these seats.
Yes.
And not in the front row.
No.
He's like a couple rows back. She like drug him back. She's like, even in death, you don't get the front.
You don't get the front.
Like, I needed to see Lauren Bacall
struggling. Oh, this heavy body. He really put on a few pounds since I killed him a few minutes ago.
It's so good. But I actually do think it's an effective final shot as we slowly zoom out because apparently it was an issue to get Michael Biehn to not blink during this sequence. It took a very long time.
Right.
Well, what is great about that final shot is, that's a giallo image. This just like still body with a knife sticking out of it in a movie theater. Well, in a theater. The only thing that's interesting is when we cut back, her hair is over her face when she walks out. It may not even be Lauren Bacall.
I was going to say, I think that might have been hey, Lauren Bacall, we need to do one more pickup shot on this ending we already reshot. And she said, fuck you.
Yeah, what do we think of the added touch of we get to hear his first letter over all of this? Does that work for you too?
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I think that it's an interesting closing of the circle. It is more polite,
right?
Which makes it eerie to close with.
Right, yeah.
If anything, it reminds us of how far he's come in just these last 94-ish minutes, right? It started off as you would expect most letters from fans to their idols to go. Here, juxtaposed with the dead body that we're seeing, you're like, oh, wow, okay. That got out of hand really quickly.
Just a smidge.
But to the movie's credit, it does just get out. Like, we just end right here. Yeah.
That's classic horror right there. One of the things I always used to love about the horror movies of like the 50s and 60s, if you're watching a Hammer movie and they kill Dracula, it's just like, bop, bop, the end.
Yeah.
We never get like the post scene where like someone's like sitting outside and like, I can't believe we lived. It's just like, no, he's in the river now. Over.
Yeah.
We're done.
You came for Dracula. Dracula's not here anymore. Bye.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching The Fan. Yeah.
We talk about that every time we do a Universal monster movie as well, because those B movies back in the day was like, oh, we hit the amount of time we need to make so that we can partner this with an A picture. We're good. We're solid.
But yeah, that's the fan, everybody. Michael, as the guest of honor, any final thoughts on this film?
I think this film is weirdly timed in its entry into the world of horror. It is not quite part of the slasher cycle, but it is not quite, I think, the thriller piece that maybe Ms. Bacall thought she signed up for. Mm-hmm. But it has aged in a lot of ways remarkably well. I think that it is a movie that, while there's strange inconsistencies and maybe there's like dangling threads left by the script, it overall works. It's a 2-character piece that we, know what happens to both of those characters. And more interestingly is what it reveals about the ongoing state of our celebrity interactions. I mean, this was made before social media, before this era where there was kind of unfettered access. And even then there was a concern, right? The idea that there are people who maybe could take their love of these people too far. And we have seen time and again now with that access, it proven to be true. It's a film that is prophetic. It's a film that's really an interesting critique on parasocial relationships before we even had that term. I really think it's an interesting watch. And I am glad that towards the end of her life, Lauren Bacall really ended up valuing and praising her performance in this, even if she didn't love the movie overall, because it is one of her better works. I think that she so often played the brassy, almost mean dame in so many things that she did. To have a character with vulnerability and likability is really, really a credit to her method and her work here. And I think that she did a great job. It's a really great way to investigate Michael Biehn's beginnings. He is adorable, even if he is a crazy person. I don't know. It's just really, it's a fun watch, even if it's a challenging watch sometimes.
Yeah. I think that this is an interesting curiosity. I was happy to revisit it. I find it highly watchable. I think I'm with you, Trace. It's not one I'm going to pop on all the frickin' time, but in terms of watching this and thinking, this is solid. There's stuff that I wish we could do just a little bit differently, but overall, this holds up for me. I think it's well worth a watch, and it is intriguing for the time period.
Yeah, I think intriguing, interesting failure, if you want to call it that. I think it's a movie that the viewing experience is more rewarding if you do know a lot about the backstory and like the production struggles this movie had, because then you can see, okay, this is why this isn't really working here. This is why this thing is in here. So on that level, yeah, I do kind of appreciate it, but yeah, it doesn't have the same kind of like, oh, this is such an entertaining watch for me, or even the camp factor isn't always really there for me in this movie, but it's there in part, fits and starts, I guess is how I would say, But
hearts, not diamonds, Trace.
Yeah, you know what? If they just made a movie of that, I'd watch that shit. But yeah, okay. Well, just some quick housekeeping before we close this out. Michael, thank you so much for coming on to this, and let everyone know, where can they find you online, and any exciting updates to report?
Yes, you can find me at Michael Varrati on Instagram and Blue Sky. You can also catch Midnight Mass every other Wednesday at midnight, which, as was mentioned at the top of the show, I co-host with drag legend Peaches Christber, and we talk about our favorite cult films and yours. As for me, I have a lot of different stuff happening right now, probably most of note and interest to your listeners. I am the co-editor of a forthcoming queer horror anthology comic book, which is beginning its crowdfunding campaign through the publisher, which should be happening now as of the time of this recording or release. So you can check that out. It's called 4 Seasons of Fear, and the whole concept is that it is a full calendar year of queer horror stories. Some of them are holiday-oriented, some of them are just based on moments in the year like back to school or first snowfall, but they're all queer, they're all horror. It's been a lot of fun to be part of. I love comic books. It's sort of my first foray in terms of running a comic book, so it's been an interesting adventure. I will be back to write, direct, and produce the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards this year. Nice. Peaches and I are about to go on tour this summer.
What?
and we will be hitting the road. We're doing a midnight mass live with Sleepaway Camp. We're taking Felissa Rose with us.
Okay.
So yeah, there's too much. I'm around
busy.
Too much. Yeah.
Well, booked and busy as always.
Classic Michael. Well, that's awesome, everyone. Yeah, go to that show. But if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Blue Sky and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd, keep track of all the films we've covered. If you want to chat with other listeners, please join our Horror Queers Discord server. That link is in the show notes. If you have a moment, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want more content, including ad-free main feed episodes, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers, where if you subscribe today, you'll get 488 hours of Patreon content, including this month's new episodes on shark movies Thrash and Deep Water, Hokum, Mortal Kombat 2, Obsession, and an audio commentary on 2006's Poseidon to coincide with its 20th anniversary, and last week's main feed episode on the original Poseidon adventure. Joe?
Yes.
What are we talking about next week?
Okay, we're closing out the month of May, and Trace, we are correcting a huge gap. We have never covered a single Vincent Price film in 7 years.
I know.
So to celebrate what would have been his birthday, we are going to discuss Theater of Blood from 1973.
A first-time watch for both of us, I believe. Joe, I'm not going to lie. I don't think I've seen more than 3 Vincent Price films in my entire life.
Okay, yeah, I might be right around there with you, but I think this is going to be the start of something. Now that we have, broken the seal.
Broken the seal.
Expect more Vincent Price in the future.
I'm really excited to visit this. So, until next week, everyone, we can cross out The Fan.
Indeed, and cross out Horror Queers.
Do you want to design your own custom miniature? Hero Forge offers fully customizable tabletop miniatures with dozens of fantasy species and thousands of parts to choose from, all within your browser. Working with materials like color plastic, acrylic standee, and bronze, and offering downloadable model files for users to 3D print their unique designs at home, Hero Forge is constantly expanding its catalog of customization options, adding new parts every week and major features like new species and custom posing on a regular basis. And as a listener of the Horror Queers podcast, you get a special deal. Use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Visit HeroForge.com to start designing your custom miniature and dice today, and check back often. New content is added every week. And remember, use code HQ to get 5% off on all orders of physical miniatures. Not combinable with other sales or promotions.
Today's episode is presented by Corporate Retreat, in theaters May 22nd via Western Film Services and Passage Pictures. Described as a gory mix of The Menu and Saw, Corporate Retreat centers around a group of young executives whose luxury team-building trip descends into a bloody fight for survival against a vengeful retreat leader, played by the inimitable Alan Ruck. At the center of this horror comedy is an eclectic cast that also includes Odeya Rush, Sasha Lane, Ashton Sanders, Zion Marino, Kirby Johnson, and Rosanna Arquette. Aaron Fisher directs from a script he co-wrote with Carrie Lee Romeo, with special makeup effects handled by Candyman and Scream 4 maestro Gary J. Tunnicliffe. You'll laugh, you'll cringe, you'll cover your eyes when Corporate Retreat hits theaters May 22nd. Get tickets now.
Imagine a city unlike any other, simmering 300 years in a raucous gumbo of debauchery versus devotion. Catholicism.
Confession is anonymous versus voodoo.
I think I done made a deal with the devil.
What you call life.
And what I call death.
It's a mysterious crossroads where the denizens of this world
and others.
He is a trickster, and I'm sure whatever he brought back from the world of the dead was a one-way trip.
Collide daily. And for Detective Frank Dupree,
I will see you in there.
And Nikki Goodluck,
this will be a dark ride. Welcome to New Orleans, babies.
Listen to Something Wicked on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you enjoy listening.